Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay for those that were trying to catch the caucus meeting live tonight on YouTube. Zoom is having a nationwide technical issue with Zoom. Therefore, we are recording the meeting and we'll be posting it to YouTube channel later on. So I apologize for any inconvenience that you had. So as begin tonight's caucus meeting, just announcements, and the first one is really important. And that's to let everybody know that we've pulled together a group of people that are from each pillar of our planning, Road to Remap planning group, specifically focusing on putting together a community survey. So we met one time, we reviewed all of the feedback and the data that we felt is important to connect and collect from the community. We met one time. We're meeting again this week to kind of finalize that survey. And just for the group, the committee of teachers and myself felt that it was important to wait about a week to do the survey so that Adams County could be green for a week and that we can give people a sense of what green would mean before we start to push out a survey. And so my goal here is to just give everyone a heads up that hopefully by the end of the weekend, we will be putting together, I'll be putting together a video of an update of where we are in the planning, and I'll also take that opportunity to introduce the community survey and the importance that it's going to play in our planning moving forward. So I just wanted to kind of put everybody out there. This has been a work in process for quite some time, and we were trying to be very strategic with the collection of information. Right now, we have a June 24th Buildings and Grounds meeting scheduled, which is actually just next week. And so we're not really anticipating any items to come up between now and then. But like we've done in the past, we'll kind of wait until Friday to see. But because there's such a short time frame in the month of June, more than likely we'll have to cancel that meeting. And and again, I think I don't want to have to run you guys in here. I know folks are back to work, and if we cannot do that, we want to do that. However, I will remind you that if we don't have that meeting, our next voting meeting is not until July 22nd. So it's quite a bit of time over the summer, okay? Also notice there are 2 personnel folders that are coming around to each of you, and we'll talk about that later in the agenda, okay? So now we will switch and go to the agenda. From personnel, we have the following resignations. We have Shannon Congleton-Parr as a high school Plato aide, and that's because of the next item, and we'll get to that in a minute. Claudia Hellman for the purposes of her retirement. And then recently we received a resignation from Allison Swecker, software application specialist, effective June 30. The reason for Shannon Congleton-Parr, her resignation from Plato, is we are recommending her to be the high school English teacher. She served in that capacity through the course of this spring. So we're excited to have Shannon on board. And then Mandy Ruberg, she's also been the replacement for Ethan Sense since when he was transferred to the elementary school. And so again, we're excited to have Mandy joining us. So their personnel file is being passed around. Excuse me. Number 3 are just the mentors for Shannon and Mandy. And that ends our personnel items for this agenda. Other items for presentations tomorrow, Dr. Fox and I, you'll be hearing information tonight about the roadmap. We're going to put together a little bit different presentation and share tomorrow in a little different format. And other agenda items, we have the IU supply bids. Justin, do you have anything to add with?
The only thing, the actual dollar amount's $135,045.16.
Okay. Each year, this is the time of the year that we look for approval to get on the state contract purchasing. This is really important because as we go out and look for items that we need across the school district, if we have this approved, they've already been bid publicly, so we can just go to each of those items and look for services and goods. D, recommending again our school physician and dentists. And then E, we'll talk about later in the agenda, which is the final budget. F, we've talked considerable length about cafeteria breakfast and lunch prices. Justin, you have anything in addition to add? Yes.
Because there was no discussion on it. I mean, we're not recommending a change in milk, but if you want to move it, I'm not going to say no.
I just wondered why that I even didn't.
So in the past, officially, if you look at the numbers, I think they're being minimal, right? You move milk up the level, that's a disproportionate increase. You consider.
Which is why we didn't do it last
Yeah, and what we've done in the past is that you're almost putting more of a burden on the kids that pack their lunches for an increase than you do the kids that are buying.
Does anybody know what our cost on box milk is?
Do you happen to know that, Justin?
The reason I'm asking you is right now from the agricultural community which I represent in Huntington Township, there's an oversupply of milk, and milk farmers are really feeling it. We heard back in April they were dumping milk. I'm not sure milk is being dumped locally, but there's still an oversupply of liquid milk. I would even be in favor, that's why I asked the question, what we're paying. If we could see fit to lower that milk price to 50 cents, 2/4 for a box of milk. If we're not losing money on milk, I think for any reasons you want to put, whether it's the people that carry their lunches, to give them a little bit of a break, but maybe to encourage that purchase of a box of milk, to help move some supply that's really a burden in the agricultural community right now.
I can say that we don't spend 55 cents on a carton of milk to get it.
That's a gallon.
So I'm thinking it's around 20 cents is what we actually purchase it for. But I'm not sure.
I would throw out there to lower the price of milk 5 cents to 50 cents.
I'll second that.
Well, we can't vote on it. We're just looking for a conversation. Remember, this is setting the agenda for tomorrow. So we can go in and change that price. You know, again, we just haven't had a conversation.
Not that, I mean, not that I'm aware of. I mean, as far as I know, yeah, I don't know anything that prohibits it. I mean, the board sets the prices for
What do you think what's the impact of that?
minimal because not too many people just buy milk.
And you remember, this is a la carte. You know, milk comes with the lunch, so it's
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not getting, most kids are going to buy water pouches or water or juice.
Or get the milk from the kid that bought lunch that wasn't going to
Yeah.
drink it anyway.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, all right.
We'll make the change.
All right. Item G, federal program approval. Here are our federal dollars. Number 5, we're going to talk about later in the agenda. Dr. Fox, anything to add with our federal programs?
Only thing missing is Title III. That was not at the time for submission. It's not in our current application, but as soon as it's added to our current federal programs application, we will add Title III in the next meeting for approval.
One question on this item. Where would I go to find, for my own education, where do we spend Title I money, Title II money? Where do we spend those?
Sure. Actually, every year I put out a notice, and last year I unfortunately only had one participant, but I go over what the items are used for. But Title I typically is our school-wide, which is used to supplement salaries and benefits for reading specialists. Title II is used for professional development as well as classroom size reduction for grade 2. Title IV is a relatively new title addition. Title IV is used for the whole child education. We used it in various different ways, from safety to enhancement of technology. Perkins is used for our 3 career and technical education programs that includes a plan. And we'll go over the CARES Act single funding.
So in the past, when I first started, we had title money. We had enough that we actually were able to fund our Title I. And that's why we used to have the Title I instructional aides and reading specialists, so we would fund. And now our dollars are 50% of what they once were. And so we are also in a school-wide Title I model for elementary and the middle school, which allows us to cover salaries and benefits for people providing reading support. And that's what Title I is to be. And we also, every once in a while, depending upon the year and salaries, we could earmark some money for materials, resources, and Title I. Like we want to get some leveled readers, we have money aside in Title I for that category. But Title II, just I don't know if you guys heard that. So it's professional development, but we also pay for part of a teacher's salary to reduce class sizes with Title II dollars, and we've done that for a number of years. Now the grade level has changed because certain years we need class size to come down. Would you say Title or Grade 2?
Grade 2 has been what we used the last 2 years.
So our budget supplements the professional development, toward professional development and salary.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
All federal programs are to be, the methodology is to supplement, not supplant. That's a terminology that we have to use, and so it's not 100% spending. And Title III is for English language learners.
And you'll see a lot of that now. Like the key word is supplant. We can't take federal money and say, hey, as a district, we're not going to pay this. We're going to supplant it with federal dollars. There are massive rules against doing that. You can't do
There's also a
that.
lot of risk in doing that, because if you pull the rug out from underneath you, something.
Yeah. And this is an area.
The point is just so that we make sure that we have local.
Correct.
Yes.
Maintenance.
Because it varies.
It's called maintenance of effort. So we have to prove that we're maintaining our local effort. Mm-hmm. And actually, we've been audited the number of times on our federal programs.
Yeah, it's supposed to be this
We're supposed to get it
spring,
again.
so I'm confident that it probably will be.
Oh,
in the
there's
fall.
a silver lining.
Moving on to letter H, school insurance. We're going to talk about later in the agenda. Or is this one here, then district-wide insurance? My
School, student insurance, as well as the athletic.
For the longest time, it was level funded at like 10. It was just under $11,000, so it's increased $51 this year. It's the same exact coverage that we've had. We've had very good success. Very little amount of students take advantage of any student insurance related to it, but it is something that we have available for all students if needed.
Thank you. Now district-wide insurance policies we'll address later in the agenda. And then donation approval. I think I alluded to this last time, but we had an anonymous donation again to offset outstanding food service debt. And this actually covers the entire district, does it not, Justin?
Correct. Yes.
So all student debt related to lunch is now gone.
What was the total?
It was just shy of $2,200.
So the excess of the donation just goes in the cafeteria fund?
No, it stays in that account
So there'll be an excess going into next school year.
for delinquent accounts.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yep.
the request was that the excess goes into the elementary school.
So you got something like on the insurance stuff for 11,000 for athletic for athletes? Is that something that is that for all categories? Is that for students who buy additional?
It's not, it's for all students, but it also has to be had for varsity and JV football. That is a requirement of PIAA. But all students can take part of it as well. We're required to have it. It is a policy that we have. It's outside of our normal Capital Blue Cross is not involved with that at all. But yes, that's something we're required to have.
You have that at school district, the students themselves, if they got injured, they would be the only parents are covered for that.
Unless they buy this.
These are a pair of last resort.
Right.
You have to have everything else exhausted before they'll pay out.
Okay, thank you, Justin. We're going to move on to finances.
Okay, starting with the general fund, we had a beginning balance of $9,122,796.51. We had revenue for the month of $3,590,938.72. We had payroll expenditures of $1,013,309.13 and other expenditures of $878,611.89, leaving an ending balance of $10,821,814.21. Looking at the revenue, very standard this time of year. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Have we seen a hit on our earned income tax yet?
It's interesting you say that. Not yet, but like I had anticipated, we just got an email today from the executive director at York Area Tax Bureau. The collections for June distribution, so the May collections, are down 36% from last year compared to this year. So even with that, we're still going to be very good. And this will be a resounding theme. This year is not the concern. Next year is the concern.
So what month do we see the revenue from people filing their taxes that need to pay in?
Well, that's a great question, because with the extensions given.
What month is it usually?
Well, usually it is in May.
So is that part of that 30% year-over-year difference?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
It definitely could factor into it, but I wouldn't say that's all of it.
I wouldn't suggest that's all of it. Okay.
It could play into it, yes. Okay, moving on to the expenditures. Looking at some of the higher dollar amounts, the Gettysburg area school district, the $128,000, that is for our tech prep tuition that was due. All your other larger items are cyber schools and charter schools, as well as our transportation and utilities. If anyone has any specific questions, please let me know.
So that actual number for the tech school, is that for the year then? Is there a whole month?
No, that's the year. Yeah, it's based on students. Yep.
Yeah. It struck me at first too, like last year.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Moving on to the cafeteria fund. We had a beginning balance of $5,114.54. Revenue for the month of $24,406.96. Payroll expenditures of $39,628.44, and other expenditures of $14,128.95, leaving an ending balance of negative $24,235.89. Factoring in the May federal and state reimbursement, we're at a negative $5,806.05. If you recall, I was estimating that our balance would be negative 12,000 roughly. Keep in mind that this does not include the expenses that we have for this month for the food, but also we're going to be getting the revenue. I'm estimating that our revenue is going to be about $10,000 for this month since we extended it past the school year. So I still feel that we'll end the year in the negative, but it's going to be, I feel it's going to be better than 12,000 negative. I think it'll probably be more around 5, but we'll still be in the hole, which the general fund will have to cover. But it's better news than what I was anticipating, but it's still totally blown everything we had filled up in the cafeteria fund. So, looking at the expenditures, again, they're all very standard for what we're going through at this time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Gina, are you aware of reimbursement for the meals that we have? Is there going to be some kind of reimbursement? I feel like we talked about
Yeah, that's what Justin was just talking about. We get reimbursed for every meal. For every meal that we distribute and we tally, we get a certain dollar amount back in reimbursement. So that's what.
Right. Now, the Pima FEMA grant is where we're attempting to get money now. I will say that I'm hopeful by the entire 2021 school year that we'll see that money, because the funny thing is that was opened up to boroughs, all governmental entities, and it was open for a day and they shut it down because the system crashed, and they still haven't opened it back up to allow any submissions. So that's why I say that. We will get it at some point. I just don't know if it'll be for long.
And during the month of June, the difference in the June, we still have food costs, but we're not paying for salaries of cafeteria workers anymore.
Right.
So we weren't distributing enough meals, getting a reimbursement to offset those costs. That's why that fund balance went away. Now during the month of June, it's pure cost of food versus reimbursement for all of the meals we give. So we feel like it's going to be a little bit more to the positive. That's where Justin's saying not to quickly accept. But I can tell you, being out there, the number of lunches we're providing is definitely down from when school was in session. We're still giving some, but it's to give you an idea, out at the lake, you know, in April, May, on average, we could have been distributing meals from 70 to 90 kids a day, multiplied times 2 because we give 2 meals, to now we're probably 20 to 25. No, we're doing for the whole month of June. Yeah, we're doing for the whole month of June. So now so we pushed that out a while ago. So now we're down to, and we were telling people too, so tell your friends, tell everybody we're still doing it through the end of June. We got an extension, so send them out. We're there. Absolutely. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're at the pool at the lake, and York Springs Fire Hall, Hampton Township Fire Hall, and East Berlin Community Center. Still at those same locations, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 to 12. Yep.
Okay, moving on to the construction fund. We had a beginning balance of $39,266,573.69. We had interest revenue of $1,423.50, and we had expenditures of $479,715.47, leaving an ending balance of $38,788,281.72. Looking at the expenditures, the first one, that is the cost for the site improvement bond that actually was required from Huntington Township. And then the rest of them are all associated with the middle school project. They're the last 3 are the first 3 payouts for the new project. Moving on to the capital reserve fund, we had a beginning balance of $542,128.28, interest revenue of $54.10, leaving an ending balance of $542,182.38. And last but not least, we have the scholarship fund. We had a beginning balance of $25,750.50. We had revenue of $2,002.20, and we had expenditures of $3,400, leaving an ending balance of $24,352.70. The $2,000 donation was for the William E. Smith Scholarship, and then the $2.20 of interest. And then you can see there the list of scholarship winners for the expenditures. Any questions? If not, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Consent agenda. We can do the fund reports. Personnel A1, ABC, we can do. 2 is a no, 3 is a no. B is a no. State purchasing C can go to consent. Physicians can go to consent. E is a no. F is a no. G, we can move those to consent. Insurance is a no. And the donation, that's always that. I think sometimes it's important not to put that in consent, have it voted separately because of, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next item. Again, sorry for the wait. Joining me in this conversation is going to be Dave Warwick. We're going to talk about guidelines for opening athletics. And so if you guys jumped on, you saw a change in this document from Friday when we posted it to today. And so like we do with most things, particularly something this significant, we reviewed it, we formatted all those things. We also shared it with Stock and Leader. And so I talked with Brooke Say today, and she enhanced the previous document. There really wasn't much as far as changing what we had, but we also put some additional items in there. So Dave Warwick is joining us here remotely. So he's going to, he's lived with this document a lot. So he's going to navigate through. So Dave, I'll just let you guide me as we go down through the highlight items.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. I'm having a lot of difficulty hearing, particularly board members.
Okay.
So the introduction, if you will, I think the important piece of this is the fact that you're
Are you there, Dave? Dave, are you're frozen there?
the prior. Can you all hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. The next piece is that what we tried to do is work with a number of different documents, National Federation of High School Sports, PIAA, Centers for Disease Control, Pennsylvania Department of Health, Pennsylvania State Government. So we had to navigate through all those documents and try to meet all the criteria in each of them in order to make sure we were recommending something to you that met all the qualifications required. Our time frame is basically a month. We're shooting for July 6th, which is the Monday following the 4th of July, through August 7th, which takes you right up to heat acclimation for football, and 2 weeks prior to what would be camp, a PIAA start date for high school athletics.
So Dave, I just want to, Dave, hold on 1 second. I just want to add,
Sure.
The school pillar committee is the group that spent the time to get this started. So each of us are out in our pillars. And so it's that committee who took this charge to put some things in print. We talked about the process, we outlined things, and then now we've taken all of that information to kind of condense it to here. So I forgot to mention that earlier. So it wasn't just Dave and I, it was about 10 to 12 different people joining our group. Sorry, Dave.
No, that's all right. Anybody can interrupt at any time, to be honest with you. Of course, you know that. We've broken this down into two options, the cherry phase and the steel phase. The cherry phase is what I'll begin with. We list in the pre-workout screening, things that must be done, shall be done in order to allow a student athlete to participate in a workout. I think one of the most important pieces to the cherry phase, I mean, you're all capable of reading this document, is the fact that it will all take place outdoors. None of it will be indoors. And our coaches that are involved with our student athletes will be wearing masks. Limitations to gatherings. In this cherry phase, there will be no greater group size than 10 with a coach, and they will maintain a 6-foot social distancing piece. Cherry phase is designed for individual skill development, not group and team. So this gives us an opportunity to work on skill sets, not really compete. Jumping down to the facilities cleaning piece, we're going to recommend the washing of the hands, the sanitation from place to place, and students are encouraged upon the workout to get their clothes, to go home, to shower, and to take care of those clothes properly. That doesn't mean throw them on the floor in your bedroom, obviously. Something that we can control as a school district, what happens at home, but we're going to encourage them to, hang them out, let them dry out, those types of things until they can get them in a wash machine and take care of them properly.
Dave, this is Jen. I have a question about that. So if they wear pennies or something like that, then that belong to the school, we still send them home with the student athletes?
Not the pennies. We're, again, in this cherry phase, we will not really be using pennies because we're not competing. We don't need to have a yellow team and a blue team, so to speak, or red and a gray. So pennies will not be in use at this point in time. When we get to that point where we're going to be using pennies preseason and things of that nature, we're going to have to look at a way of washing them on a daily basis. And that's the only way I can see that we can do it, because the penny you wore yesterday might be the penny that I wear today. So it has to be cleaned. Oh, and the other option is that we issue pennies out to kids but if we both have yellow pennies, there's not much on a penny to determine one's Jen Zerfings and one's Dave Orwig's. Do you agree?
Right.
So there has to be some things that we look at there.
And at the end of the day, if we ended up using something like that, we have washing facilities, we belong to them ourselves. If we got into that situation. The other piece to this is we're going to ask each coach to come up with a one-page, like, this is what it looks like for soccer, this is what it looks like for football, this is what some specific, and so we'll kind of have that addressed, if they're going to use pennies or not, address it, so that we can ensure people are thinking through just little things like that, sharing pennies, and once we get to the point that we're actually able to pass a ball, throw a ball, those type of things. So but something like that, worst case scenario, we can end up washing them. We have facilities. We'll get to that because that's an example later on. Yeah, at the end of this section, we talk about that just a little bit. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, then we talk about the physical activity and the athletic equipment.
Oh, actually.
There should be no shared equipment between anyone, towels, clothing, shoes, sports-specific equipment, and personal items should be separated. And again, if you've recently worked with student athletes and so forth, it's much different than it used to be. They tend to share a lot of things. And it's kind of amazing. I'm sure the people that do laundry in your homes see a lot of strange shirts and shorts from time to time. All athletic equipment, including balls, should be cleaned after each use and prior to the next workout. Seems a little absurd to clean a football or a soccer ball, but those things do need to be cleaned. Free weight exercises that require a spotter cannot be conducted while honoring social distancing norms at this point in time. This next section is kind of interesting. The examples, including but not limited to, and it talks about a basketball player during this phase, a football player, a volleyball player, softball, baseball players, wrestlers, cheerleaders, and tennis players. Cites some examples of what they can do and what the expectations are under the cherry. And then we get into hydration and etiquette. All students will bring their own water bottles. No, water won't be supplied by the school. Hydration stations such as our watering troughs won't be used. And activities like spitting, chewing gum, licking fingers, or eating sunflower seeds that increase saliva, those things will be prohibited as well.
Dave, that under those examples, I didn't see field hockey or soccer. And I would think, they don't actually have to touch those balls. You're touching it with a stick or with your foot. Do those same rules apply to field hockey and soccer?
Yeah, they're just kind of like examples by sport. And I think, I'm not sure who I'm speaking with at this point, but I think what is happening when you think of those two sports, you're not supposed to touch the ball with your hands. So it's more the other equipment like your goggles in field hockey or your stick in soccer. Again, I think when you think about that sport, probably the thing that bothers me the most is the heading of the ball. But in cherry phase, that's your ball. So if Dr. Hodgkiss and I are side by side and our soccer balls tend to go in the same direction, we don't want to switch. I need to maintain my soccer ball and he needs to maintain his, even if it's.
Lost you there, Dave. Are you there, Dave?
Be easier. Steel phase. This does bring in some possibilities for group activities and even team activities. Again, the pre-screening workout is pretty much the same as it was in Cherry. Vulnerable individuals or those considered at risk for COVID-19 should not oversee or participate in any workouts during the steel phase. The gatherings or the groups of pods can increase to 25 people at a time, or your facility can reach up to 50% of its capacity. So when you think about who's going to be indoors, you're talking about your volleyball team, you're talking about your basketball teams. We don't even come close to 50% of our capacity in that facility with our teams. So obviously we can bring the whole group in there under the steel phase. And our teams, the groups of kids that can, for these open opportunities, oftentimes don't reach 25.
I think
the idea of the pod, go ahead.
No, I was just going to talk about the pods that you're seeing a trend here as we increase in groups. The goal is that we want the student athletes to stay with the same group of kids. Try not to have them mix. So if you have these 10 student athletes that come in, we want those 10 kids to work out in the same group the entire time. Now, as you open up, if you have 3 groups And group A and B, we want them, if they end up staying together, then they must stay together. That's the idea of the, when you see that pod. So sorry, Dave.
No, I was actually just about ready to go into that. And that's going to be quite challenging for our coaches. I can tell you, because in these open workouts, you never know who's going to show up. And the balance of those pods could get lopsided throughout the month.
Be a roster kept based on workout.
Could you hear that, Dave?
Dave, is there
I
going to
could
be a
not- I could not
roster
hear that.
kept for workouts based on who shows up?
I'm hearing rosters and based on who shows up. That's
Yes.
all I'm hearing.
Are we gonna keep a roster?
Of who's at each of the workouts? Yes. Yeah, that's part of the pre-screening. That'll give us those workouts. And I'd like to use that pre-screening sheet actually to identify the pod so that it doesn't have to be rewritten.
And we'll show that to you guys. We have an active link in there. We've got that screening sheet. So we'll show you what that looks like here at the end.
Okay.
Another question, Dave, before you move on. Does the steel phase have a time, a date attached to it like the cherry phase had?
No, when you take a look at the very beginning of this, we've kind of listed July 6th as our marker to begin and August 7th to stop this type of format. For all other sports besides football, we would stay in this for the week of August 10th. Now, I'm going to guess where I think you're headed with this. How do we make a determination as to cherry and steel? Am I right? I think this is Dave talking. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So the idea is that, you all know that this is fluid, and absolutely none of us have any experience in this whatsoever. So the thing that I think you have to use is common sense. You have to gauge the climate. You got to pay attention to the news. You got to pay attention to your community, but you can't also be strong-armed into being too aggressive in this at the same time. We want to look at what other school districts are doing throughout the month. And again, not just because if Littlestown's doing something much more aggressive than we are, that doesn't mean we have to go in that direction. It's going to be a climate type of thing, and it's going to be a feel, and it's going to be a sense. And we may be back to some gut feelings about some things.
And so one of the things that we've talked about, even at the committee level, and the recommendation from PDE, is the importance to take an opportunity to pilot some of your protocols that you're putting in place. So we view this as an opportunity to kind of go through some of the protocols that we've established. So we want to live through it. We want to make sure that we're feeling good about what the pre-screening process looks like. And that actually, we're very sensitive to what are the students going to feel when they get back on campus and around other people? What are the parents going to feel? And so we want to be just mindful of that. And so there'll be a group. We'll go back to the members of our school operations group. We'll also probably pull in Kim, the trainer, and we'll kind of debrief, and we'll check daily pretty much when there are workouts, how's it going, if there's anything popping up. But we wanted to keep the flexibility before we move to this. It's as much as let's make sure that what we put in print, we can actually accomplish and feel good about. And then we also want to make sure that once we utilize facilities, that we've got the appropriate people and plan in place to clean them the way that we've outlined here. And so we'd rather be slow and deliberate and methodical about that process.
I have a question. Hi, Dave.
Yep.
How often are we checking for symptoms in each phase? Like when kids come in, do they get checked each day?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
Every day.
That's what I'm wondering.
Every time they come. Yep.
Actually, before they actually enter the building is the game plan.
What did they?
He said before they enter the building is the game plan. So we've got like even the idea of When they come in, you'll see they're supposed to be in their cars. We have a location picked. We want to make sure it works. We want to make sure that we don't have too many people in groupings, and so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, we this would be the first thing.
And are coaches going to take care of that? Or
Yes.
Coaches are going to take care of
Yes.
When they're checking for symptoms, are they actually going to do temperature checks, or are they going to just ask?
No, temperature checks.
It's required that they have to do temperature checks.
That's correct. You are correct. The question was, if somebody, and that's important, and we'll get to it, if somebody does not meet one of the screening requirements and they're sent home, if they brought other student athletes with them, those students must also go home.
That's correct.
We do, it's part of
And
the
if
policy.
somebody develops those types of symptoms in the middle of practice, the people in their pod also have to go home.
And we get to really at the end, I think, and this is where Brooke has been very helpful, we spell out our protocol. If somebody's got symptoms, what it looks like, it's pretty detailed. To the point that Dave and I said, like, it's impossible for somebody to commit it to memory. We will go to this document and use it as a guide because it gives you, specific examples
I'm
of what you
assuming
do.
nobody can return until they've been tested.
That's one component. Yes, we'll get to that here in a little bit. Okay, so Dave, I think we are down to the building.
Entering and exiting the building. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there's also a detailed plan that when we get to Steel, what entrances and exits teams will be using. We're doing that under the facilities pillar. That's actually my responsibility, so I will be creating a guide in that direction. We'll continue to social distance and limit non-essential visitors, volunteers for these activities. So these are not something when we are indoors that we will be allowing. It'll be a closed workout is what it amounts to. And then the pick up and drop off, that's exactly what it is. It's dropping the student athletes off. Nobody needs to get out of the car except for the student athlete. Siblings can't hang out, and parents can't really hang out during these workouts. We're going to ask that they leave the premises. And then, so that's pretty much that section.
We lost you, Dave.
Enhanced cleaning and sanitation measures. And again, we're wiping things down. And when you get to the weight room, you got to wipe things down. You got to clean everything. Much more high octane cleaning is what it amounts to. Then we get into safe access, and it's minimizing people within the facility and keeping social. When you turn to the next page and you get to the COVID-19 symptoms, testing, management, and return to play, I think these were some of the questions that were being asked here just earlier, just a few moments ago. If a student is sick or thinks he or she may be infected with a virus, he or she should stay home. The days of sending your kids or asking kids to be at practice when they're not feeling very well, they're over for right now. They should call a healthcare provider, and particularly if they develop a fever. Notify the school immediately, principal, athletic director, athletic trainer, coach. Any one of us should be notified. We'll certainly notify the rest on the list. We work very well in that regard of notifying one another. If symptoms begin during practice or an event, isolate from others until a parent or guardian arrive for transport. If a student knows or thinks they have COVID, days of no fever with no medication and no symptoms, and they have improved 10 days after symptoms have appeared. And then it goes on, if they're tested, no fever without medication, symptoms have improved, 2 negative tests in a row, at least 24 hours apart. I think that's interesting, the gap of the tests. If tested positive COVID-19 but has no symptoms, 10 days.
Hang on, Dave.
So if they test
Okay.
negative, they have to go back and get a second test?
Yep.
This whole section came from Stockton Leader.
Yeah.
That's unheard of. Who's paying for it?
And there has to be that 4-hour gap.
Right now, they're free.
What do you have, what if there's getting
Right now, there's no cost to the COVID
That,
testing. currently.
Going multiple ones in the same week, don't count on it.
I don't have an answer for that.
We might want to dig into that a little bit. You know,
I mean, it's not the leader's job to keep us out of court, and I respect that, but.
yeah, that's actually very.
I'll double check. You hear that, Dave? We'll double check with Stockton Leader tomorrow on that one item.
I really can't hear the communication.
We were just talking about the 2 negative tests, and that seems to be pretty restrictive. So we're just going to double check and make sure that that is in fact accurate, that we require 2 in a row.
Okay, I'll circle that.
Yeah. Or keep in mind, it's not a requirement. They could self-isolate for 10 days. If they don't have the symptoms, then they can return. So this is an or. These are, so just, if you read that.
Yeah, you know, the interesting part is the vast majority of this demographic could have COVID and will be asymptomatic.
And they would never go into the protocol because all of the questions we asked, none of them would ever hit. Correct. That's why you still try to mask for the adults, social distancing. That's why all that's. No, just on the initial coming in. Okay, go ahead, Dave. You want to get down to the if tested positive.
Okay, if a student has, I think the other piece is if a family member of a student athlete tests positive for COVID-19, they are required then to also notify us that has taken place because they've been exposed to the illness. Positive test confirmed, when to seek emergency medical attention. Look for the emergency warning signs that are listed. This list is not all the possible symptoms. And other suggestions: stay at home, take care of yourself, get rest, and stay hydrated. Stay in touch with your doctor. So this information is not only for coaches, but this is information that also needs to be sent home so that families have an indication of, if they don't understand, what this virus is and how to respond to it. Preparing staff and students, all coaching staff, members, and students will be required to adhere to the guidance provided, and families will have to sign off. Attendance, student athletes and coaches in attendance for summer workouts is optional. It always has been optional. And we want to reinforce right now that this is optional. And then we have set some limitations: 2 hours of conditioning, 90 minutes of skill training. I don't think any of our programs spend nearly that amount of time in the summertime in one individual session, and we'll make sure that they are under that. All their practices or workouts would have to be scheduled through me, and I'll look at those time frames that they set up and make sure that they fall within those guidelines.
can't go to that.
Okay. And I think we're on to the questionnaire at the beginning of. that
Yeah,
we
it's
would
not,
ask
it's,
for the
I can't,
Pre-workout screen.
yeah, the hyperlink's not letting me go out to the document right now.
Okay.
Screen share. There you go.
So we have a date for the workout. Obviously, circle yes or no. We list all the student athletes down the left-hand side. Time the screening takes place. Simple answer, yes or no questions. Do you have a fever, cough, sore throat, shortness of breath? We've got to circle this each time. Close contact or cared for someone with COVID-19, and then the temperature goes in the last box. This is where I think with a highlighter, we can identify pods on a daily basis by name. Very simple process without creating a second list.
About it covers it.
Who's controlling the list?
To collect that, the coach. And then each week, the coach will be providing Dave with a copy that we will keep for the, you're going to do that weekly, Dave?
Yes, weekly,
Collect them weekly.
It's not,
or sooner if needed.
okay, because you're flirting with protected health information.
Not related to COVID. These are actually with us, all essential employees. We've been doing the exact same thing with employees.
One thing for you to know, but it gets to people that don't have a need to know. Because we go through, I'm going through this at work.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to, so it comes up to the coach, like the coach, and this is something that we care about. That's why we put, good question. We put procedures in place. We were very thoughtful about having a group of student athletes come up. Mike, you've got a symptom, you're going to go home and you've got 12 of your buddies watching. Like, we don't want to put people in that situation. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put a pop-up tent. We're going to put dots or something so that we can have 5 or 6 kids. Everybody else has to remain in their car, with the idea that when we're outside, once they come screening, every person that comes in has to walk away, and they're either going to go to the field or they'll have to go somewhere. So that's not done in, you know, like, hey, you can't go. They may end up walking their car and end up leaving, but it's a little bit more discreet. And so, like anything else in the school setting, coaches, whatever it would be, everything, that's a given that has to be confidential.
And you
And so-
also can't share. There'd be a lot of pressure if somebody is positive. I want to know who.
Actually, we will, if somebody tests positive, we will have to issue, we won't say the person, but it'll be a generic, like, you've been exposed to somebody who is currently under quarantine. You've seen these things with other school districts. It'll definitely be generic, and we'll be pushing something out. Basically it's the contact tracing is what it is. We will have to go through and figure out who's been in contact, and we will notify those folks that they may have been exposed. But we won't tell you who it is. No.
I know it's voluntary for players. It's voluntary for coaches
To what?
if they don't want to do something.
Oh, it's always been optional. Right. Yep. Did you hear that question, Dave?
No, I did not.
The question was, it's voluntary for athletes, but is it voluntary for coaches to have summer workouts? And I said yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, it's always been that way. Yeah, that's not changed.
Anybody else have any questions? So the other piece of this, and this requires board approval, so the one item we will check out as far as the testing, we plan to educate the coaches first, provide training. Second wave is going to educate all of the student athletes. Do like back to summer, do some training. We're going to record it so that people can attend. The expectation is the day we go and watch it, and they ultimately have to sign off on the document. So that's why we're doing this now. We're saying July 6th. It gives us time to be able to do all of that. That's when we start. PIAA has said that we can start July 1st. We're waiting till after the holiday. July 1st. Between now and July 6th. We don't have exact date yet. We've got the process, and so we're trying to. But no, it's that whole idea, begin with the end in mind. We know we need to have it then. We need to back it up and communicate with people in advance notice. So probably this week after, we get board approval tomorrow, we'll put a timeline in place and try to figure out exactly what that looks like and how we want to do it. Yes. Oh, yeah. And we will have to put this on the website. It'll be publicly accessible.
And this is only covering preseason.
This is only covering preseason. That's correct.
So then we still have like August practices, which teams normally come back.
Yeah, that's the whole reopening of schools and what that looks like. That'll be a separate plan. And obviously, I'll be honest with you, this provides us a good framework for a lot of different things so here's one for you. And we're trying to get some clearance. We do not know if we can take the same plan and apply it to band. We've got band camp because this specific plan was earmarked for athletics. And so we haven't been given the guidance for, can we have band camp? And any other extracurricular activity that would occur in the summertime. I'm mindful of it. It makes sense for us to take this same idea, but apply it to band, again, with having the band person coming up with a document about what that looks like. So we're still waiting to hear on that.
Yeah. I think the other piece is that what we learned this Thursday last week, that we had, had time to pull this thing together for this upcoming board meeting, or we would be waiting until July 22nd, and how things have changed and stay fluid.
Yeah.
It's.
And there's always the outlier too. We've all said that if there's different guidance that comes down from the Department of Health, CDC or something, we will have to be fluid and make an adjustment with this if they have something else that comes along. Yes, so this is just preseason.
Well, and also let's keep in mind, some of the guidance is just that, it's guidance, it's not law.
And there are certain things, and you'll see.
Guidance is conflicting.
We'll talk about that later on. There's guidance and recommendations, and then there are some musts.
We are making this a rule of school, so.
That's correct.
If a coach doesn't follow this to the team,
That's correct.
then that's a liability on the coach.
That's correct.
And you have to take corrective action.
You are correct.
So this is where I struggle, because the official start of fall season does not happen until the middle of August. This is all voluntary. Technically, these coaches are out of contract.
But they're employees of the school district.
I understand that. I just, to me, it's kind of tenuous, right? Because, and maybe Pennsylvania is taking a very different view of the world. But it used to be that schools weren't allowed to have organized practices before the beginning of the season. We have a document saying that it's not only going to be organized, it's going to be structured.
But you can't have mandatory practices.
That's
right. And that's the word they use. It can't be mandatory. It can be organized, but it can't be mandatory.
So I always thought the test was that the coaches aren't even supposed to be there. It was, captain's practices.
Well,
it's you think of summer leagues, basketball, they play summer league all.
I'm not saying people don't get the racer's edge. That's called cheating. But you know.
Other people that come from the community and help all the practices and things. So-
Yeah, unless they're an approved coach, nobody will be approved to come and help with a practice. Must be a coach on staff.
What about the ones we vote on like that extra?
Yeah, if they've been approved, if they're approved, then they're fine. Yeah, absolutely, then they're good. Yep. 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 Yep.
That's a PIAA.
And listen, to be honest, and Dave, part of the conversation with, we have coaches on the committee is we want to make sure that we've got enough coaches if they're going to split up in pods that they can do it. And so each coaching staff is going to be working through that. Because part of the guidance is if we have older coaches that could be susceptible, we want to put them in that position. And so that's a challenge for the staff. It really is.
Yeah, it really, this is really challenging for coaches.
Throw out a counter, point of view to this, or pick up that. Is all of this for non-mandatory practices prior to the start of the season?
Every one of your head, do you hear the question was, is all of this work worth non-mandatory practices to the start of the season? And I would say, yes.
Well, I think there's a lot of different people that would give you different answers to that. And I think what we're trying, from my vantage point, why I'm trying to do this is for the benefit of the students. They've been away from school since March 13th. And for those that need us and need their coaches, I can't tell you the number of conversations that take place since March 13th with coaches. And some kids need this as an outlet. I mean, and I also believe from a school district standpoint, an administrator in the district, that this gives us a chance to test the water, so to speak, with some pretty trustworthy people to just get a sense of how kids are going to respond to this. Are they going to listen? Are they going to ignore it? Or are they going to, toe the line with all the guidelines? I mean, I wish this was a one-page document. It's not possible. Is it worth it?
Well, and
I know you played that.
yeah.
Well, and listen, that's why I think it's a good opportunity for us. We've got some protocols in place that I want to see if we can scale up, the more people that we bring back. So I think it's a good opportunity. And listen, we're about providing all students opportunities. And I think that we've worked hard enough. We put some things in place. I feel really good about this plan. Ultimate test is it only looks good on paper. Can we implement it? And that's what we want to test. Is it possible? And we're willing to put in that effort. We're willing to put some protections in place. And listen, this touches our custodians, to coaches, to our families, and just each of our building principals. Like there's a lot of people that are kind of on the periphery, like going to be helping do some things.
A couple of questions, and maybe this was asked before. Can we anticipate another document of some length on July the 22nd that will address life after August 7th?
For athletics?
And beyond on
Yes.
athletics, on the arts. I'm thinking band camp, where social distancing, it's been proven, goes from 6 feet to 18 feet between people blowing air through an instrument and singing, even singing the national anthem at our games, and how we address that.
So that's what I was saying. Many school districts have reached out. So there are two plans that were required. Athletics and the school reopening. They must be both board approved. So our plan is to bring you a plan on July 22nd for the start of school, what that looks like, okay? We're asking ourselves, are we to embed all extracurriculars that are non-athletic in that document, or are they going to give us something different? We've received no guidance on that. We just don't. We want to do. We just want to.
Meaning that as far as the document.
So my plan is I'm going to take this using that and I'm going to apply it to band. It's the common sense approach. I can embed it in there, but we've lived long enough to know there could be something extra that's going to come out. So July 22nd, we will be presenting, and that's kind of, you're going to get an update now.
When will band camp be?
So band camp, Dr. Boyce has reached out to me a while ago. They typically would start doing some things in the month of July. I do think that if we get the plan in place after July 22nd, I still think that that's almost a month before school would begin. I still think that that's a pretty good amount of time. And, you know, like most things, we're just going to have to adapt. And if we can give them that window, and I've told them to go ahead and plan the show, do all those things so that whenever we get the go ahead that we can do it, we're in a position to do it. So he was moving forward with the design and all of those type of things. But to your point, I think Dave said earlier, or Justin said earlier, you know, we're going to use common sense. We're going to apply some protocols, but we have to be respectful enough that, yeah, blowing horns and singing is a little bit different. And it has different things that come into play that we want to think through.
Hey, Shane.
Yes, John.
So I spoke to Derek today, and July 7th was their first kind of scheduled event. So gave him the heads up on this document and that it was going for approval. And I said, it's a good possibility it's going to be used for the band as well. But their band camp is scheduled, I believe, the week of the 27th.
So, okay. So what I would say,
July.
Yep, July. I feel good about that. I will step back and wait for a little bit of guidance and kind of think through some individual things to the July 7th type of thing. And again, we'll apply some common sense for that. So I feel good that because the camp is bringing back the masses, right, John?
Yes. So prior to that, I think it would be similar to what coaches would be starting on July 6th. So that I was just glad it was after that date. So he's familiar with some of the. I mean, I shared the document, said it's a very rough draft, not approved, but just to give you some of the ideas, some of the things that were in place. And I told him, I said, you're just going to have to think creatively and you know, change how you've probably done it in the past to this point. And then, you know, we'll go from there. So I told him I will definitely get back to him once I know where this stands.
Okay. And I think I feel like we're in a good position. At least he's got a heads up and starting to think.
Well, that document doesn't need to be approved by.
No. I'm waiting to make sure they don't give us one that says, oh yeah, it has to. So we'll use some common sense, put some things in place, and we'll get with Derek and we'll feel good about it. And again, it comes down to, let's give kids opportunities. Let's try to, our goal, we're going to do it in a safe way. So stay tuned, John. Thanks for doing that with Derek. I wasn't aware of that, so that's great. You and I will touch base, and then we can kind of get a game plan for what that might look like with band.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, band does that week because a lot of those kids play a sport. So he's not asking them to choose between band or their sport. So
okay,
that's why they're early.
All right, Dave, thanks for everything. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. So next topic, we have a number of folks here. We want to give an update. So here you heard about athletics. And so we've been having some meetings and internal conversations about the return to school and the roadmap and the pillars. So there are going to be a number of people sharing information. I put a presentation together and we'll go through that document. So give me. Okay. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay. So early on, we started to share that we were planning around 3 scenarios. Now keep in mind, this presentation that you're seeing here, this roadmap, is all out to the website for people to look at. So 1, it's reopen schools without significant physical distancing. 2, a hybrid model. 3, enhanced remote learning. So part of the hybrid models that we were considering, we just went through a bunch of options. 2 days on, 2 days virtual with a Friday flex. So basically arranging students in buildings into two groups, a cherry and steel or something to that effect. With an idea, in this case, week 1, students in group A go to school Monday, Wednesday, group B, Tuesday, Thursday. The following week, they would flip-flop. So obviously, as you go through this, you can think of a lot of things of like, oh gosh, trying to schedule. However, what we're demonstrating is we've thought through a lot of the variations and the options, and there's good and bad with all of them. And again, if to look at the parentheses, these are, even saying typical school hours. Another option B is to have your A and B, and again, stay with the same days of the week for each group. The idea with the Friday flex, it gives kids an idea to catch up on work, gives teachers an opportunity to plan, still connect with kids, but we're calling it a flex day so that it's the idea of students can begin completing work. We want to try to introduce as minimal as possible, anything new, and then start to build up for the following week to get that face-to-face time.
Monday, Wednesday,
No, they still have to do work. And so what they would do, I'm the teacher, I'm going to provide instruction. By the way, I'll see you on Wednesday. Between now and Wednesday, you need to do this work. So the expectation is they're still doing content virtually.
That would be our enhanced remote learning experience that they'd be using. At the middle school, high school, their work would be loaded up onto the Canvas platform, and at the elementary school, we'll talk about the platform in which they'll be using. They would still use the same mediums. They could go through, email, or they could in fact wait until the next round to ask that question, but mostly email or the discussion boards.
And so again, you're hitting one of the challenges is, if you're a teacher and we've got the class and you've got 10 kids and you've got 10 kids home, how do we do that? Now, keep in mind, we've got other people that can support, but that is certainly one of the challenges under that model. Oh, let me back up. Notice at the top, it's the same A and B plan, but alternate hours. And so we ask ourselves, do the hours of school have to operate the way hours of school now? And we said, we have 2 staggered runs. So with this model, can we just say, here's the school day for elementary and secondary? Enhanced transportation, what would that look like? Obviously, first thing I think of is senior kindergartner, same bus. So there's pros and cons, but we just put out there, can we create a common day that would make sense and help with transportation, help with daycare, help with a lot of the things that we're all thinking about? And then option D, again, is the same thing, alternate hours. We threw out as an option E, where students would go in group A, they're face-to-face for a week, and then they're virtual the next week. Instead of doing every day, we go a week at a time. And again, trying to maximize face-to-face and work on their own, something to consider. And again, same thing with alternate hours. We've talked about an evening school where we can be creative with people at night, because guess what, by the way, we're anticipating that there'll be staff members that don't come back. And so how can we leverage them in a different way? And so we talked about if people are virtual and they need help, can we set up tutoring at night? Give them specific help, for that period of time. Can we have our other teachers who may not be, in classrooms during the day, how can we have them provide help? Could it be face-to-face in a room like this? Could we do it remotely?
How does that help with staff?
If they're doing remote and they don't have to, they can be responsible for providing remote help for a large group of students. Basically what we do with Eagles Academy, if they're not in the classroom. And so they may end up having, if they're elementary, they may have students in K-4 instead of just the grade level. And we're providing support that way. And they're not delivering online content. They're actually serving as a tutor. So the content is still by a classroom teacher, but it's that adult teacher helping somebody navigate and work through. So listen, we do that here in the middle school and the high school. We provide after school tutoring, and that's kind of the idea of how can we support kids after hours with a certified teacher. Just one idea.
So our instructional pillar group.
Make sure you're not mute.
Are those all the options?
Originally, I'll get to that in a second.
Because you're missing something. One really important one. Oh, go ahead.
Those were the hybrid options.
Okay.
Not the back to school. Those were just at the three, out of the three scenarios. There was back to school, complete remote. Those were the potential hybrid options in between. And since then, I'll call it a super hybrid option that I'll be sharing with you. And I really want some strategic feedback from this group. And that actually just, I solidified its potential today. So go ahead, sorry, John.
Oh, that's okay.
Thanks. Our instructional pillar group is comprised of 16 teachers, administrators, specialists throughout the district. Fortunate to have Mrs. Myers, Mrs. Azili, and Mrs. Dunkley also on our caucus agenda for tonight, and they're here as well to help me if in fact they want to fill in any gaps along the way here. We identified at the beginning of our instruction pillar groups options centered around attendance and grading for scenarios B and C. We held vertical discussions led by several of our teachers to identify critical skills that were taught in the areas of math and literacy since March. We wanted to identify those, knowing full well that those content skills, those power standards are extremely important to identify, and therefore, for instance, grade 1 would know, or grade 2 would know what grade 1, what those power standards and impactful content are. That way, when we go into at the beginnings of our planning in August, we're able to make those curriculum adjustments and either front load, condense, as well as consolidate any of those particular units we may need to. The next two are extremely important. We created draft guidelines for options B and C regarding synchronous learning, as well as the use of teacher audio and video. And we'll share those here in a second. And we created Canvas expectations as well for the consistency during the course of content creation. And that we're going to share out with teachers. I'll share out with teachers here just this week. So you're getting a preview here before we actually share these.
Hang on one second here. I need to exit here, admit. Okay.
And we selected a single platform for content and assignments at the elementary school. So the instructional pillar group decided upon the use of Seesaw consistently at the elementary school. This is an overview of our Canvas course expectations. So again, I want to thank Mrs. Dunkley. I want to thank the whole instructional pillar committee and group for really working to organize what we believe that a Canvas experience should look like for every student. At the beginning of our course organization, you see that every student should work through homepage. Modules are extremely important. They will function as units, as well as looking through the content that includes the introduction, discussions, and discussion boards, extremely powerful tool within Canvas. External tools when relevant, and all of these throughout this document have URLs that are built in, and that when we share this out with teachers, there's resources that are built in as examples. Assessments, the use of feedback, and the last one, extremely important, is the use of direct instruction in a virtual environment, screencasting, producing videos and audio.
So I think this is the time for other people on the committee to share why this document is important. What lesson did we learn?
Hi, everybody. It's Keela.
Don't forget to unmute.
I did. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now we got you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Keela. A couple of things just in communication with parents, with students, and with teachers. One of the biggest comments that I got during the last couple of months was just that courses look different. So students may have had some trouble navigating. Parents weren't entirely sure where to go, what to look for. And it became a little bit difficult because each course just looks so different. And so really what we wanted to do was ensure that all of our students had a place that was organized, a place where parents could go and they could access information, where they would be able to identify, okay, this is what my student needs to do. These are the things that are in place. So we really knew it was necessary to have some consistency. So I think that this document is going to be really powerful moving into next year as teachers start planning.
Thank you. ready for
Can
next.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
When's this work gonna get done? By the teachers?
Through the summer, beginning of the school year, we've been spinning up content. One of the key pieces as we went through this past spring, there were numerous professional development days that we did not use. And as I shared with the staff, at the time, I just felt it was not a good time to ask people to be getting PD. And I said, what we're expecting is that at some point at your leisure over the course of the summer, you make up that time by building out content. We're going to build in content development at the beginning of the school year. We have days that are there, but the idea is that we're going to be sharing out the framework so that they can start to build out content. The vast majority are already wanting to get working on their content, but we will also build in some time at the beginning of the year for staff.
I want to be crystal clear. This is a heavy lift that we're asking our teachers to do. Not saying they're not going to do it, but everybody in this room needs to understand that they're not off the summer. Yeah, you don't have enough PD days to give them to get even the first quarter marking period up online.
Well, and I think that, that's where we come in expectations. We don't need to start the school year with the entire marking period there, but teachers have to plan for the beginning of the school year professionally anyhow. We're just going to be doing it a little bit differently. And the other piece that's important, well,
No, we do not want to do that.
it's definitely had been a topic. I'm not advocating that we do that.
Most people are going the other way. They're pulling their start date
Going earlier. It is a heavy lift.
Again, this would be another reason too why if we are in a hybrid model that we're talking about a Flex Friday, knowing that the teachers are going to have a lot, that Friday day would be able to be used to meet with students, discuss with students, but would also be a day where teachers would be able to utilize that for planning and additional professional development opportunities. Again, optional this summer. We'll be starting in the next couple of weeks having optional professional development days where teachers can virtually, connect. We can start building. So we're going to have those in place as optional, but I think this is another reason why that Friday Flex Day is going to be crucial.
I think there's also the power in teacher collaboration as well. So for instance, if Dr. Hotchkiss and I are working on the same class, we can actually work together in Canvas and then split our content out or take different components that we like from each other as well. So there's a lot of commonalities that you can share and build together.
And in the Canvas community, Canvas users have the ability to publish their course publicly. And so we can share it. If we build an Algebra 1 course, we can share it out, but we also can go out to the community and we can pull in any content area that maybe have already been created and then edit it to be ours. And so there's some really good work out there. So this really highlights collaboration, not just within the district, but across districts. So we're trying to connect with some like school districts in Canvas for the content perspective as well.
One of the things that I don't say it's a competition, but this would be like a business, then we would be competing with cyber schools that are having content every day that we're doing only 4 days. What would your comeback be?
We're delivering content face to face in addition to to this. They're not. So we're also going to have counselors. We're going to have social emotional learning curriculum, all the other things that are really important face to face that really you can do virtually, but it's just not the same. We're going to be providing in school. So that's a huge separator in our opinion.
Nothing beats face to face.
It doesn't. And so that's going to get to my thing. My ultimate goal with our planning is to maximize face-to-face interactions of our students with teachers. How we can do it safely. That's the number one goal that I have.
So, and that is, I think it's a premise that we need to make sure everybody understands.
Correct. And I'll get to the at the end of the day, or at the end of this presentation, all right, here's kind of where we are, and I want to get some strategic feedback with that idea in mind.
Yeah. Wait, can I ask one more question? So with that premise of I'm going to have this group of kids on Monday and this group of kids on Tuesday, and that group of kids that I had on Monday are doing computer stuff, virtual stuff on Tuesday, I don't necessarily have interaction with those kids on Tuesday. Because I'm busy with my other group of kids on Tuesday.
Well, and keep in mind, teachers have planning periods and have those things. So we would, but we also have.
But they're going to be busy lifting as well.
Correct. It's an absolute challenge. But we also would have to look at leveraging other adults in the district that could be available to support that. That's a significant concern I have is Mike Wool's teaching math with 10 kids and he's got 10 kids online and they've got something. And how can we support those 10 kids while you're doing that? That hands down, it's a challenge.
There's some instructional approaches to flipping that model. So there's some ways to front load some of that material when you're at home. So when you're inside of the classroom, you have that chance to be able to maximize that time and use that time for more discussions and indoor practice.
Well, is it also possible though that on Tuesday that my Monday kids could tap in and watch the lesson all over again?
Yes.
It's going to be a repeat.
Yes.
Each day.
Yes.
Most likely.
Yes.
Unless they get off kilter.
And we could be just a little bit, but yeah, the foundation, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
You could record every class, for that matter. You could record their Monday class, and if you miss the class,
Watch it again.
record your test positive to be out of school and working days. Then you can watch the classes that you're missing without losing time.
And you know, at some of the higher level, you know, what tools do we need to be able to record? You know, and thinking through all of those things. But it's kind of twirling out there, no doubt about it.
Recording and managing all that is also a heavy. Not just the recording is the easy part. It's getting it posted somewhere that's easy to find, easily to play back.
Yeah.
So
Because
it's not
think of the number.
feasible, right?
Yeah, think of the number of classes we're
I would
talking.
say that it's not like here's a perfect example. I'm recording this and I'm going to post it later, but it's going to take time to be able to do.
Yeah, but you do 8 hours of instruction every day.
We don't do it. Nobody does 8 hours.
Well, you know what I mean. All right. I thought you guys want to look at things. Sorry, I'm only kidding. Only kidding. Everybody
He's
online.
kidding.
I'm only kidding. No, but my point is you better make sure you have enough. You better make sure you have enough disk capacity.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and I'm sorry Doug Knight said that. But anyhow, that would be because believe it or not, we chew through that really fast.
Oh yeah. But again, it's a lot of those things that we'd have to work through.
Maybe I missed something here on this whole thing. And I'm certified in chemistry. I'm a science guy. And at first working period as a chem teacher, I've got 45 days, 45 lessons of content. And I know that chemistry, teachers would never have new content every day. So let's be realistic and say I've got 35 to 37 days of content that I need to have my students master by the end of the first 9 weeks. And I'm going to be teaching Group A on Monday, Group B the same content on Tuesday. So by the third day, I'm already a day behind because I'm teaching my second day of content on Wednesday to Group A and my second day of content to Group B on Thursday. So I reach Friday, and instead of having 4 or 5 days of content, I've had 2. How do I, and then I multiply that again in week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I adjust without watering down what my students need? Because chemistry is like calculus, is like geometry. If you miss that first 5 days of instruction, it's sort of like being behind in your budget because the next year you got to double your tax increase, and it's sort of like the second week in chemistry, you've got to double your efforts to catch up. because the second week was built on the first week, and the third week was built on the first 2 weeks, and so on and so on and so on. It's a completely different mindset than, say, history or English or a lot of the other subjects. So explain to me how our sciences don't get behind in all of this.
And I would say, I mean, that's your concrete example, but I'd say it's other content. So I'll let you take it, and then I'll see what you say, and then I'll add to it.
Yeah, I think you hit on a problem of practice that's live. I mean, I would say mathematics is a huge one as well that connects well
into the sciences. We know that there's going to have to be adjustments at the beginning of the school year for content that was delivered in March that needs to be front loaded. We also know that content is going to have to be consolidated, and there's going to be some shifting and certainly some condensing of material. In terms of watering down, I think there are ways that we can connect a lot of the different standards to impact the labs and begin to maximize that time greatly within the classrooms to be able to connect a lot of that content and material.
So the other thing I'll say is it makes the assumption that you're introducing a new skill each day, which isn't really the case. You can't introduce something. You've got to have an opportunity to have some application. So I think that that's one. One of the things that we really stressed through this spring is not necessarily day to day. Here are the tasks that we want you to be able to complete, more of that project-based approach. So by this Friday, our goal is to present enough content for you that you can complete this, demonstrate your learning in somehow, some way. That's not necessarily tied to that individual day's lesson, so to speak. I'll also tell you that from a content perspective, and this will, we don't have block scheduling. We may have to go to a block scheduling type structure if we get kids face-to-face to make up for it. It's a possibility. So, and I'll apologize because right now, there is nothing that's solidified with what school is. I know when we talk schedule, it gives our high school principal the shakes. It gives a lot of people the shakes. However, we also have demonstrated that we can think creatively. And that old archaic 9-period approach of 42 minutes might have to change to do this. So to me, that's the opportunity. Once we, and again, we're gathering and we're starting to build this funnel. And again, at the end, I'll kind of give you my current thoughts of where we are, but that's a possibility. And so one of our goals here, I said there's an important survey coming up that's going to guide us, because now we're getting to the point that we can share. We've thought about a lot of things. We want to start to narrow down so we can put our energies into some deep planning. So imagine the thought, Rich, you've had this experience, like how we go from 9 periods, 12-period days, to all of a sudden block scheduling. But if that's what our students need to make sure that they get the content, and then that day that they're not there, now they're actually getting into, there's a lot of work to be able to do, then that's what we need to spin up and try to come up with that. I don't know how. The other thing that PDE has told us that they're looking for, by the way, right now, the state of Pennsylvania does not have a law that would allow any school district to implement hybrid learning. They've come out and say you must come to school 180 days. No, so the foundation from a law to allow us to do a hybrid currently does not exist. Okay, so that's pretty interesting when you think about it. So to be determined with that, but they're asking if Dave Reinecker is good in chemistry. I'm going to make the assumption you're pretty good in math, right? That they're going to allow us the flexibility. You might be able to pick up a math class, even though you might not be certified in the math. That if we have people that they're allowed to teach outside content areas, because we've got, like I told before, somebody that's out, that we're able to create and put people in a position that they're successful with if they're not certified in that area. The Secretary of Education said he's going to be seeking that reprieve from the legislature to allow us to do that in this unknown structure. And so that gives us, again, not saying that we're going to do it, but it won't eliminate the possibility if, math is an ELA guy, but we know you're really good at algebra and we need you to help with algebra and you feel comfortable, we may have to lean on you to help us. And we now have a law and a structure that will allow that to take place. So good questions. All right. You're still going.
Thanks. This next document is a document that was produced by the instructional committee as well. Just finalized on our last meeting. It also spells out some guidelines for synchronous learning in a hybrid model, as well as what that would look like also in a remote learning environment. We talked specifically in a hybrid model of what that Friday may look like. If you look here in the blue, about the fourth bullet point, it says all levels, a time block for virtual meetup in order to allow students to ask questions for check-ins, complete work completion, and revise assignments as needed. The committee thought that that was an extremely important aspect as well. The remote learning, you'll see that here we also want to make mention that if we need to, and it's important that we continue to build out content for enhanced remote learning in the event that we do need to pivot or we do need to shift up and go full enhanced remote learning very quickly. That we believe the utilization of Zoom meetings, scheduled Zoom meetings for students at the elementary level would be morning and afternoon Zoom meetings that would be scheduled. The chance for middle and high school as well, once every 6-day cycle, as well as twice per month for homeroom teachers to check in, as well as provide career readiness lessons to students.
Just can you have the virtual meetings, install a platform that would be a Zoom type platform or be Zoom, and then also the full-on cyber schools, they use virtual meetings.
Yeah,
that's Zoom is what we currently use. So that's what we placed in there. But that is not an all platform that we've selected. So really, it's Zoom is more, I think, a word that we've selected at this point to use. But it's been something that has been pretty viable for us. Using it for several meetings, and some teachers have been very comfortable with utilization of Zoom currently. As per what other cyber schools use for their that I don't. I would have to research. I don't know at this point what other cyber charter schools may use in terms of their platform.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Blackboard is more like Blackboard is more like Canvas type. Does Canvas have a?
They have a feature in there, I believe. And Kira, correct me if I'm wrong. It's called the Big Blue Button, I believe.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
The question was, does Canvas have a built-in feature similar to Zoom that allows for video communication? Big blue button.
They do. Yes, they had. They've just did an update. So that update just came out with the Big Blue Button one. But they do have built-in conferencing. There are some limitations within it. So it's. I wouldn't say there's as many features. It's not quite as robust as Zoom, but yes, they have a built-in conferencing feature that allows you to do video or audio.
What's the cost implications of having Zoom that far and wide in use?
Are we? I'll give you the answer after are we, with the account that I set up for Alice and Keela, are we able to use that single account embedded into Canvas? Or how does that, is that how we're able to provide that access?
No, are you talking about the ones that we provided for each school?
No, I know we did that, but can Zoom be integrated into Canvas?
It can be integrated into Canvas. We are currently not integrated into Canvas because the way that the paid accounts are set up, they're not set up for everyone.
So therein lies the answer. So right now we have 10 licenses across the district that allow up to 300 participants in a meeting for each licensee. And so that is like $200 a month.
So you would have to get a license for every teacher.
I'd have to look if we can get a site license or an enterprise license if we chose to do that. I know as you scale up and you go enterprise, Zoom is a little bit different. What we've done now is we have a general Zoom account for elementary, middle, and high school. We've been using that a lot for special ed. And so you log in through that general account. So we've given that to any teacher who needs to conduct a meeting. They set it up in the calendar and they're able to have their meeting by building. So those are 3 of the 10 accounts that we have. So you're right. We'd have to look, whatever the committee recommends for that conferencing, there is going to be a cost.
Larger places like cyber school, there's other platforms out there that are like Zoom is very much a meeting oriented type platform, right? It's not a collaborative type classroom type. But there's companies like Livestream or other brands called Venmo, Cafeteria, and there's a handful of others that they do more integrated, content.
Is your mic on, Doug? Make sure your mic's on.
Oh, it's not. I don't even.
And he doesn't even remember what he said.
But there's a lot out there, but they're not inexpensive.
So what more than likely will happen is the instructional group, we want to see what integrates the best with Canvas and try to have, again, one-stop shopping. What we learned is the more that you go out, the more confusing it can be for everybody. So we're trying to minimize that. And so, the group will take that, again, to Dr. Fox's idea. It's like, this is the concept, people can relate to it, but no final decision on what interactive tool that we'll be using to integrate has been made. Okay. Yep. You good? Yep.
Which, like, if I was a teacher, I'm thinking I either have to figure out if we're doing all online, how I'm gonna connect with my students versus if I'm a student every other day versus if I'm gonna have morning students and night students.
So what we're,
When will they know?
So the question is, when will teachers know which model that we're going to use moving forward for planning and planning content? I don't know what you're going to say, but I'll throw it up. Go ahead.
I was going to say at this point, what we've asked teachers to do, and we'll continue to ask them to do, is to build content in the learning management systems. Because we know, again, dependent upon any model that we choose, we know that content's going to play a huge role. We also know that we may have to shift very quickly.
So his point is we've learned a couple lessons. No matter what we do, even if hypothetically we're bringing every student back face to face, we are still going to build content out in Canvas because we know at any time we could be read, we could be shut down. We need to be able to switch gears. And so to me, it's building out good quality content the way we want it to be, and then how we access it. If we can do face to face, great. If it's full remote, it's there. If it's not, we've got enhancement because we
should now be designing as if it was full remote.
Yes. So that was the direction that's the direction that I provided every teacher in the month of May. I told every staff member we had a Zoom. That's exactly the direction that I said.
And I will be sharing out this Canvas course expectation sheet this week.
You good with this one? Okay.
Again, this is just, again, it goes into a little bit more detail on the video and audio considerations. In the bottom, in the gray area, it's also the video audio consideration for both options that talks about the length suggested in the instructional pillar committee. Again, providing guidelines on the length of a video or audio produced at the high school and elementary, middle school, high school, and elementary school level. Shifting into the wellness pillar, I'm going to pinch hit a little bit for Dr. Hunt. The wellness pillar committee decided it's important to send out a survey as well to inquire about the mental health and well-being of students and families, with some key questions focusing on what are they thinking about in terms of a return to school, what protocols, again, the committee thought it was, or the pillar group thought it was important to know what protocols are we following. Again, the World Health Organization, CDC, and or PDE guidelines. And once those protocols are established, the wellness pillar is emphatic that clear communication and direct accessibility to all needs to occur.
And you saw some of the protocols we put in place for athletics where certainly they apply to whatever area.
I think we need to be careful calling out these protocols that we follow. Because some of them are painting a very broad brush, specifically the WHO. Right now, if you follow whose protocols, everybody will have to wear a face mask that's at least 3 layers thick for the duration of the class. And by the way, there's no real science to support that. There's no real science to support that.
I'm assuming we're gonna hear about whatever protective gear people have.
Yep. Technology, Keela.
There, I'm sorry, I'm gonna apologize. I'm having a really difficult time hearing anybody but you, Shane. So if there's any questions, just let me know.
Okay.
Just some important highlights. Proper sanitation of devices is in place. That was in place immediately, really, before we left on March 13th, already having those discussions. What would that look like if any devices needed to come back on campus? We have them going into plastic bags. If at all possible, we're not touching them for a 3-day period. If we need to turn them around, we actually can have AGI send a box directly to the student's home, so there's no touching of the device at all right now. They can send that device out to AGI and then it can come back to the student. So we've talked with AGI about that, so we're making sure that that's in place. And we've ordered the supplies that we need already for senior devices that we've collected. Again, those weren't something that we needed to immediately touch, so we were able to let those devices sit before we started to use Clorox and things on there, which we have talked with Apple and we are allowed in this case. For our students entering grades 6 to 12, this year we made the decision not to collect devices, and so those are being kept at home. Students should be receiving or have already received a letter just kind of outlining some guidelines for device care over the summer, just because this is the first time they've remained at home. Our 5th grade students are students that will be starting 5th grade next year. Typically what we would do is we would have all families and students come on campus and we would walk them through an enrollment period. There would be several different layers to that. There would be large group meetings. So to eliminate all of that, we are going to be enrolling all of the devices. So typically we would never touch the iPad before handing it to the student. We can allow the student to sign on. We're going to actually be signing on for all 5th grade students. So when they do come onto campus to be able to get that iPad, there will be limited time that they have to be on, also limited exposure. So we'll be working on that for when we go ahead to do that distribution in August. If we are in a model, either the second or third scenario where we're doing remote or some version of a hybrid type learning environment, we'll be looking at hotspot distribution. We do have hotspots that are now on campus that we'll be testing to see what that service looks like. We know that we do have areas within the district that are remote, so we definitely need to test those, but then we'll be looking at determining which of our families would be able to benefit from those hotspots. So that's something that we have that'll be coming up. Again, if we are in that B or C or second or third model where we're in hybrid or remote, the past 2 months, what we were able to do was very quickly get a student ticketing system in place. It did work for the time being. However, we do know that if we're looking at a more widespread long-term remote learning, we'll have to put something else in place. So that ticketing system, just to make it a little bit easier for students as well as the tech side to keep track of tickets that are coming in. That would be in addition to what's already in place for our teachers. This would be something that students would be able to use. Outdoor access points are installed. The antennas, it says on here that they will be added, but they already are all set. So of the 12, 9 are fully functioning with the antennas, and there was 3 more that tech was waiting for maintenance to run some additional wiring to. But those access points will then allow for all of our buildings to have in the parking lots to have access.
Hey, Keila, how are you going to manage the utilization of the hotspots?
Were you able to hear that?
No, I'm sorry.
He said Mike Wool wants to know how you're going to handle the utilization of the hotspots.
How we're distributing them, or so they're all unlimited data? I'm not sure what you're asking, Mike.
Well, distribution. So you are getting unlimited data for all of them.
Yes.
Correct. They're unlimited data for all of them. Of course, 100 of them, so we know we have multiple students and our family members in multiple buildings that we wouldn't need to do. Our biggest concern, I would say right now, is the service. So I know that that's kind of ongoing. We're still looking at that. I also know that Shane is, and Shane, if you want to talk a little bit about just trying to communicate with CenturyLink to see if there's anything else we can do, or if the hotspots aren't going to work in certain areas. They are T-Mobile.
Sure.
Which isn't working at all right now, but.
So we have this. We want to check connectivity. I've been trying for the last month to get in contact with a CenturyLink. Yeah, we knew they merged and they're actually towers up then. But trying to get in touch with a CenturyLink decision maker, and it's been tough. So I hit him up on Twitter. You saw Twitter. I finally got somebody to respond to me, and I got an 800 number. Here's my goal. Comcast. If you have Comcast, they have a program, Internet Essentials. It's $9.95 a month. Okay. I'm looking for a very similar program with CenturyLink. Right now, we've got grant money. The hotspots are $20 a month. And so if I can I want to build a partnership with CenturyLink because that's the phone provider. That if we have to provide internet access, I'd much rather pay the cost of the internet at $10 a month, similar to the Comcast program, than $20 for the hotspot. Knowing that even though I'm hearing that CenturyLink internet access is suspect sometimes, it's an avenue to provide internet access. And so
well, you're also going to have a geographical limitation to getting some folks from central office. That's going to be probably your biggest challenge.
And so anybody that's listening out there, anybody that can provide internet access to our students that's not contingent upon hotspot, please contact me. I want to talk to anybody about it. That's been the challenge. Whether it's Comcast, I don't care who it is.
Have you talked to somebody from Comcast to see what kind of penetration they have?
We have in the past, and actually Dr. Hunt has given his own example, and so there's a large fee to be able to bring Comcast just to the residents to be able to get the connectivity.
Oh, I mean, I got to tell you, we didn't get Comcast where I lived until not that long ago.
Yeah.
You didn't even get it.
So it's a big deal. I mean, I bring this up, and when I was on with the Secretary of Education, we were talking about, and I said, Bermudian Springs, 30 minutes south of Harrisburg, Route 15 runs right through us. We have no public water, no public sewer, no cable television. Help. And we're not that far. And so it's a significant issue. So anybody who's listening, please reach out to me.
Is he helping you?
Not yet. So anyhow, thanks, Keela.
Cool. Thanks, Keela.
Mr. Defoe.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
All right. So the post-secondary is broken into two components. One was the due first, which was, the most pressing because it was take care of the class of 2020, which were the current seniors, and make sure that they finished the year with everything that they would need moving forward for whatever post-secondary option that they were selecting. So we've just put a ton of effort into that. We feel very good about where that stands, and the one thing that's unique in this is when somebody needs something, there's typically no trouble getting in touch with them. It's when you need something from them that it's a little more challenging. But we started with the senior exit surveys, sent through email, through communication, addressed in Zoom meetings. Normally that's something that Mr. Nace would do. He would visit every government and econ class, and they would complete that, and we'd have that full list. Last time I checked on that, we were right about 75% completion, which in comparison, everything's is pretty outstanding, and we're continuing. I went to the senior car parade at York Springs that night and spoke briefly, and the first thing I asked them to do was complete that, and then I went car to car and asked someone to do the same. So just going to continue with that effort. All seniors were provided a physical paper copy of their final transcript and a copy of the diploma in case they needed it. All colleges to this point and all post-secondary schools were sent the final transcript of all students based on information we received as to where they were attending. To date, and this was a little shocking, but we've only had 2 that didn't accept the digital transcript, still insisted on one being mailed, which is a little surprising considering everything that's going on. During senior collection, we shared all that information as well, provided the hard copies, posted all that information for all students. With that, right now we're at our last 10 seniors that we're tracking iPads for. We're down to like 3 students that owe anything. So, we just continue to beat the pavement on that. And now that we're back in the office regularly, we're made phone calls to all of those today to try to get that taken care of. So from a class of 2020 standpoint, the academic awards and the scholarships, we did an outreach to all those kids to make sure that all necessary paperwork's been completed and submitted as to whether they were going to receive the financial award themselves or it was going to be sent directly to the school. But all of that has been taken care of to this point. When you look at 2021, for our committee, it's really significant as to whether or not we're fully remote. If we're in person or any version of in person, we can provide and do all the things that we normally do. And the things that we couldn't would apply to the remote plan. So the first thing we have is a staff team. Team was put together based on various needs and a couple teachers that we know see exclusively seniors throughout a day for communication purposes. Made sure we have a representative from special education for learning support students, Ms. Groff for our EL students, and then Mrs. Wallen for our Eagles Academy kids. And then some of the things that we've talked about for next year is requiring Zoom meetings by homeroom with Mr. Nace and myself, in addition to the direct communications and the social media platforms to share various events and opportunities. As you've seen, a lot of schools are already starting to move away or be SAT optional, so we want to stay up to date and share that information with kids. Of course, college boards reaching out already trying to schedule multiple SAT sessions, so it's going to depend on what a student's looking to do. I'm going to rely and depend on Mr. Nace and Mr. Ryder with the government class to assist us in communicating with kids if necessary for remote. Talked about either Zoom sessions or recorded sessions with the college representatives, the military, to trade and tech schools that would normally come in and visit students in the guidance office. If that's not going to be possible, how we'll continue to make that an option and make sure they don't lose that opportunity. Create videos for students and families that we would normally offer in person. So our college planning evening, our financial aid planning evening, and things like that. If that's not going to be possible to host in person on campus, the alternative that those students don't lose that opportunity. Obviously, flexibility is going to be critical to assist students. There's going to be certain unique circumstances. Like this year, just a week or so ago, I got a communication from a beautician school requiring a diploma from a kid, and we're just going to deal with those things as they arise because they're usually one-off and not very very populated in terms of number of students. And then talking about assigning small groups of seniors to various team members just to make bi-weekly personal communications with them. And then anything that would be guidance specific or may broach into the wellness part of it, obviously share that information as necessary. And then the goal plan obviously is for seniors to experience no difference in the service they would receive as compared to if we were in school as normal.
All right, thank you. Facilities, Mr. Peart.
All right. first and foremost, I wanted to start off by saying our current cleaning procedures that we utilize on an everyday basis and what we do now in the summer that we've always done meet CDC guidelines, and there's nothing that we need to do to meet those guidelines. So I want that to be known first and foremost, because obviously with everything going on, sanitizing, disinfecting, and things of that nature are very high on everyone's mind. But that knowing that hopefully puts some people at ease, because there's nothing that we need to drastically do differently. So as I say here, I mean, obviously our focus, even more so this year than in past years, is cleaning, disinfecting, and sanitizing all buildings in the district. And Dave Cook is the head of, obviously, the custodians, and he's definitely developed procedures that focus more heavily on looking at the high area, touch areas, and focusing on things that we can do better at than we have in years past. And he's done a very good job in putting guidelines in place. Some specific things that we're looking at changing procedures on to follow CDC guidelines are, for example, here, air filters. Typically, we were changing those every 3 months. Now we're doing it on a monthly basis until further notice. That's the CDC guideline. There's a lot of talk about ventilation in the classrooms. The nice thing is at the elementary school with the new HVAC system, we can monitor that much better. The only sacrifice you make is the chance of humidity increasing. So obviously you're letting outside air in. We live in a very humid area as far as in going back to school at the beginning. Not until we hit winter does the humidity fall down, but and then later in the spring. So looking at that, also we've had two good discussions, but researching signage to display throughout the district, and these are just helpful reminders for all students and staff to follow the CDC recommendations. So that's something that we definitely will be implementing and posting throughout all buildings in the district. Also looking at once having a more hard line of when people are going to be out of buildings, and limiting the access, and that's what Dave Dorwig was talking about earlier, as far as the plan for entry and exits of extracurriculars, and not just for athletics, for all people. So I know in the past we've been very lenient on when people leave, especially teachers and that nature, but we want to be able to get people out so we can clean, sanitize, and not be disrupted until the next school day begins. So we have the ability through the swipe card system to do that, and you know, that's what we're looking at. The other one here is looking at multiple ways of setting up classrooms to follow CDC guidelines. We've had a lot of discussion in the committee about, we know there's a lot of extra things in classrooms. In order to look at meeting these guidelines, how can we do that without, I mean, obviously we want to provide the guidance and follow the guidelines as much as possible. So what that means is the potential, I mean, there's nothing definite, but I can't imagine how in some classrooms it's not definitely going to happen, that we're removing some things that are in there as not a requirement of the classroom. So that's going to be a challenge for some individuals, but I would hope that given the fact of what we need to do to make in-person as much as possible, that would be something that we can get by, at least until further notice.
What's that process look like?
As far as what?
Furniture?
Pulling stuff out of the classrooms?
If it's theirs, they take it home. Because the majority of it is their own stuff.
I know that.
So we haven't come to that decision,
Okay.
but that's something that, I mean, it's not even just a room, it's about the ability to sanitize those
I understand.
things and disinfect.
I'm just,
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that, if it's not handled right, could totally blow up in our faces. That's, I just don't know.
Sure. And actually, it's one of those things, and you guys, thankfully, you really don't hear about this, but every year at the end of the year, as we prepare for summer cleaning, this is a hot button topic because teachers have microwaves, refrigerators, coffee makers, Keurigs in classrooms, and we finally, and keep in mind, that's all electric. It's in classrooms, and so we've taken a stance a few years ago, just the importance of, listen, over the summer, take it home, because if a custodian, when they move stuff, if they break it, like, we don't want to take that responsibility of breaking your personal items. And so that is one of those things that we try to navigate through, but I'm telling you, it's a really big deal at the end of each year. Yes. Yes. And so we're familiar with that conversation, and people don't like it. And I gotta be honest with you, I think teachers now recognize this is different. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, what do we need to do to be able to get face-to-face time with kids? And that's going to be the premise of decision-making in classrooms and sanitize it correctly. So, yeah.
And I already touched on this about limiting entrance and exit points for after-school activities. And then this is another thing that we just talked about in our most recent meeting. Is looking at ways to keep students and staff safe in hallways and other common areas per CDC guidelines. Some ideas that we threw out there was some kind of marking, like almost like a roadway. Like if you're going down the hall, you're going to have a dotted line to keep them separated as much as possible.
How wide are the hallways?
What's that?
How wide are the hallways?
Every building's different. That just makes it more challenging. Plus, you look at the potential of staggered, not everyone dismissing the rooms at the same time. I mean, that involves a lot of different scheduling. That's, whether we have bells or not, or do we go based on many different, like maybe one side of the hallway exits this time, and then the other side exits this time. So all those discussions are happening. But I think just something for people to visualize. Maybe they won't acknowledge it right away, but I think it's just getting familiar with it. And then we're also looking at different kinds of equipment that we can utilize to sanitize and disinfect large areas fairly quickly. So I think under those circumstances, we can definitely handle what we need to in order to keep things clean and disinfected. But I feel very confident in the procedures that we have in place currently that we're using. And again, what we're doing now meets the requirements for sanitizing and disinfecting. So
something dumb that I noticed in most of the schools.
Can you speak up though?
Yeah, sure. Something I've noticed in a lot of the buildings is they all have a lost and found. Yeah, how do we deal with that, like in the facility plan? They're generally just like articles of clothing and boxes or whatever that's sitting on a rack somewhere. How are we going to handle situations like that moving forward?
I mean, to be honest, that was one piece that we hadn't discussed, but I view that as whether, I don't know if we dispose of them, but definitely get them out of the area. And I would think if they haven't been picked up, people haven't been asking about where they're at, then yeah.
Thanks, Justin. So this school operations pillar is me. And so a lot of the things that we've talked about connect with what Justin had to say. So as a group, we're the group that would be responsible coming up with the schedule of what school would be and some of the general procedures and protocols. And so we felt that the developing the athletic health and safety plan was a great opportunity to kind of try some of the things that we were talking about. So this group had a very active hand in the development of that plan and ideas. We spent a lot of time having conversations. Like I said, we have teachers, coaches, administrators, and so we really had some good feedback and that guided our work. We also, like most groups, identified some key questions that really are going to be important to our ability to operate school. For example, transportation. There's a lot we need to know about transportation. So we've identified all of those. And so what our next steps is we want to monitor the health and safety plan for athletics, see what that's like. And then start to develop operating procedures, revising the scenarios. And so that's part of that survey is we want to take the multiple planning scenarios and start to eliminate some so that we can really sharpen our focus on planning. And that's the importance of the parent feedback, just gathering data. And I'll give you an example of one of the questions that we're going to try to tease out is how many parents would opt out of transportation for next school year because they're able to bring their child to school or carpool with somebody to bring their children to school. And so our goal statistically is to try to get a return that we can take the percentage and apply it to the masses to just help guide, knowing that people aren't going to commit. But our planning, if we know that 50% of our parents are going to opt out of transportation, our planning is going to be different. Or even if we're close to that, our planning and potentials could be vastly different.
Are we obligated by law to have them? Is it a law that they have to be assigned to a bus route, or do we just do that for our?
No, it is, but they're changing that guidance to allow this to happen. So we still will have all of that there, but what Dr. Hunt is actually working on in our transportation software, creating multiple scenarios so that we can have, we can tease things out. So you're right, but they're giving us the flexibility to adhere to guidelines. So
James, if we have the, AB alternating Monday through Thursday, are we able to save 20% of our transportation?
To be determined, because here's how I look at this, and that's a great question. So Justin will laugh. I'm like, so to me, I know that we have 35 bus runs a day, right? For 5 days. So do the math. What is that? 150, 165, whatever it would be. 175. So we have 175 for the week. Okay. How we do that, to me, is there's nothing that says 175 bus runs have to happen the same each day. We may take those 175 bus runs and try to condense them into 4 days. I don't know. Or we could use them differently. We're looking at, for instance, shuttles. Could we take our closest bus run and go to York Springs 2 times to pick up kids instead of just once? So those are all of the, so to be honest with you, I can't quite answer that. And transportation right now on the expectations is the most unreasonable. The latest guidelines is this 1 student every other seat. So we're looking at 12 kids on a bus. We also want to look at, you have multiple children, you can sit on the same row. So depending upon the route, what's the maximum that we can get taking into consideration, we've got families connected. And so it's tough. This transportation is one of the biggest hurdles to any plan that any school district is developing.
Are you going to ask about in your survey about childcare?
Yes,
Because that's gonna be a real.
no doubt about it. Yep. Childcare is a big deal. Absolutely.
And what about students that do not follow the guidelines? What's the plan there?
To be determined. And so we know that. We know in a perfect world that, they'd be great. But the reality is it's adults and students. That's why we feel this summertime is going to be a pretty good test of because at the end of the day, I don't think anybody in our organization wants to be the face mask police or the 6-foot social distancing police. We have to have some common expectations. And so that is something that's going to be challenging for all of our administrators. And it's going to have to be more of a sense of community and families asking for people's help. If we want to do this, this is what we need to have in place. So to be determined, but yeah, it presents a whole new challenge for our building administrators if all of a sudden we get a discipline issue related to a violation of a protocol in place.
I don't even do it.
We are not going to ask students to do that unless we're told to do so. We have to by the Department of Education. So I'm going to go back here. Sorry. So thanks everybody for participating. I'm just going to make one more. Here's kind of where we are. I've been spending a lot of time sifting through PDE's preliminary guidance for opening schools and their phased reopening template. And as you can see, they're pretty thick, and we've been reading through. And there's definitely contradictory statements in there. There's a lot of musts, and there's areas where there are no musts. And so I'm trying to sift through what's required and what's a decision that we can make. And so I solidified with a couple folks today, PDE, and I ran this idea by our school solicitor, okay? In the guidelines, it very clearly says under the green phase, okay, that we could have up to 25 people in a room if we isolated the room for the day, so to speak. So we have a class, 22 students, we have one teacher. They stay there and they get their instruction face to face. Kids don't go across the hall. We can provide that face-to-face instruction. Keep in mind, my ultimate goal is to create opportunities for as much face-to-face as possible, adhering to the guidelines. This document tells me that we have the ability to do that. Now, with that being said, so I'm going to say K to 4 right now. K to 4, I think it's something we can do. But now, how do you go down the hallways? What does lunch look like? What does specials look like? We'll work through all of that. But I believe when we're talking about our students who need that face-to-face, who we know that we have a high percentage of we're 40% free and reduced lunch. We want to get kids in school. We know that we're going to have to be dealing with social emotional needs. We just have to. And so can we safely do that? Now, it also says that you can do 25, and social distancing of 6 feet is definitely something that you must try to do. I think they use the word to the greatest extent possible. So I'm going to get to Justin's point. So we are going to be going down to an elementary classroom. We'll clear out the classroom. And we're going to put desks in a room. We're going to put 25. Not that we have, I'll be honest with you guys, we don't have many classes with 25 kids in them, thankfully, class size. So if we put that amount of desks in a room, what does it look like? How far apart? Now, keep in mind, we're stripping out stuff we don't need. It could be a bookshelf. It could be a table. If we want kids face to face, what's the bare minimum for a room? And then how much space can we put in between? Okay? We're going to look at it. All right? The other piece that I had to delineate today, because again, it was all over. And you guys have gotten emails. The hot button topic is face masks. This guidance and talking with a solicitor, in one area they didn't make it clear, but at the end of the day, they've made it very clear. Adults must have face masks. Yes, it is required. Students, no. Adults, yes.
How are they gonna teach and talk and speak and be understood?
Be articulate. I'm just telling you what it says. And I clarified today, I'm telling you, this is the number one topic. And right now, based on the guidance we have, that's clearly what it says.
It's not face-to-face, it's face-to-face.
It's face mask, correct. And so they also talk about students. And so I gotta be honest with you. So I'm giving a temperature reading right now. One, are we gonna have parents who will send their children back to an elementary school if we can isolate them? We need to know that. It's pretty significant. I will even say, and I know Shannon, I try to give Shannon a heads up, can we do it for K to 6? So typically in 5th and 6th grade, we would have them move, but if we want to get face-to-face time, could we change their schedule that we can keep 5th and 6th graders, who we believe are elementary like, that we can bring them in through the course of the week, get face-to-face through K to 6. And then look at a hybrid model, 7 through 12, leveraging, doing an A-B schedule, something to that effect. To me, right now, if you ask me, I think that that's our best chance to get the most kids back. But I will tell you, if you look at school districts right now, the only school districts that have announced what their plan is for the fall have announced a hybrid option. That's it. You have seen nothing else. And there are very few that have announced right now about what they're doing. But if they did, it's hybrid. And then come with that, there's all the questions, childcare, all of that kind of stuff. That's why we're trying to be very slow and methodical. But I've talked to some colleagues of mine who feel like I do. And again, I don't want to just, everybody has their beliefs on things. But ultimately, I'm responsible for the things that happen. And I want to try to make the safest possible. And I'm asking, are we willing to take that risk? We will not be in the majority with that approach. But there are people doing it. And I do think that we could put efforts in to create a fairly safe space for kids with having elementary and everybody in a class.
Going full on back, K to 4,
Yes.
K to 6.
Yes.
What about cafeteria? Do they eat in their room?
They'll have to eat in the room. We'll have to, to me, I'm trying to build around that core concept, and then we'll have to think about all the one-offs of what that looks like. Cafeteria. Matter of fact, the guidance says you can't eat in the cafeterias. Right? Too large of a group, you got to do something else. And so
There's too much what?
there's too many people. You can't have people in a cafeteria. It says you've got to come up with an alternate approach to cafeteria. Even to the point of bag lunches, all that kind of stuff, prepared meals.
What about the music? Is that art?
To be determined what that looks like.
Where you have a teacher going to this room,
Yep.
to this room, to this room.
And
Should be wearing that?
well, they should be wearing a mask.
She's not isolated to that particular room.
Well, here's and exactly. And so we would need to be able to work through what that looks like. And so again, I want to focus on the core areas. And then, okay, now that we've got that, how do we do music? How do we do PE? Kids need to get up and move. We've got to navigate through all of that.
There are ways around it.
There are.
Music could be.
Listen, we need to be creative, and we can do that. You know, we can do that. But what and again, some of the administrators here are like, this is a fairly new idea, because I finally today, in the middle of the day, got on the phone with PD and I verified, are you telling me that this is an option? And I got confirmation it could be.
So we're not putting ourselves at risk for liability because we're still within the guidelines.
That's correct. And so I talked with a solicitor today, and she said it's important that we take the effort to look at classrooms and try to figure out and try to get this 6 feet into a classroom to the greatest extent possible. And so I'm going to look at that looks like. We may end up having to, you know, when I think 3rd and 4th grade, where we may have 25 students in a room, we may have to go to a larger space, split up the gym. Anything is possible.
That might be the cafeteria.
Anything is possible. And so I need to know from the board, I'm telling you this, right now I believe we're not going to be the majority. Are we okay with that? As a possibility. I'm not confirming that this is what we're doing, but this is a concept and idea that I'm going to get some feedback on. would have to be some type of hybrid. We'd have to figure that out, but I'm a hybrid. And guess what, guys? I'm saying this, and are we willing as a school to spend more for transportation to get kids here? Because I don't know that yet.
Well, I think that it's an easier conversation at K through 4 because of the way that our buildings are set up and K through 6. But I might be wrong.
We could 5 through 6 can happen. We'll have to work through it, but it's possible. Absolutely.
I mean, in general, for me, I want you to do whatever you can to maximize the number of students you can get back to face-to-face learning.
I don't know if you guys heard that. So
I think the biggest challenge you're gonna have is if some smart-ass 6th grader turns around and sneezes on the kid next to him. And that's gonna be the biggest challenge.
And in the bathrooms with a kid, I mean, I have middle school kids, so
me too.
I say K through 4, you can still manage those.
But you're gonna have this in a hybrid. The problem you're gonna have the hybrid model also.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Right.
And you will. And so we'll have to, honestly, we'll have to come up with the structures. How do kids go to the bathroom? Do we just willy-nilly let them go? But again, these are all things that we can have conversations about.
Are we willing to spend more to have an aide stand in front of the bathrooms and limit the amount of children going in?
Well, listen, and
so we don't have a congregant?
To your point, I believe under this model, we're not going to be able to do business as usual with some of the supports because of the adults. So first I'm going to look at the internal people that we have may have different responsibilities, to your point. And so I don't know. And so I'm just telling you, I can't tell you how much more it's going to cost. Other than that article was about ASA did a national study. The average school district is going to spend $1.7 million more to implement all of the regulations.
Are they going to go outside of recess?
I want them to.
I mean, because you're talking about logistically, I'm just thinking about adults. You're talking about kids come in and I know you're going, that's done, man. And then they're in that room.
Yeah.
That one room.
Yeah.
Without leaving. So even during the teacher's prep time, like, she doesn't get prep.
We'll have to work through that. We'll have to get them that. We will have to figure that out. And so we have a lot of space. We've got more than a playground. We've got a field. We've got multiple fields. We're going to have to be creative because I still think that that's important. But again, we've gone from here are all the options. And I want to, now you know why this feedback from parents. I want to put some feelings out there. One of the questions is how many parents are going to send their children back to school with a face mask? I'm just curious. I want to get that information. We're trying to be very thoughtful about the collection of information to kind of guide us. And I'm just telling you, I know how we operate as a board and as a group. We're very conservative most of the time, but we're also progressive. And I think that that's why our past spring, because of the work and the foresight of One to World and what that meant, we're out there. But this is different. And to your point, my overall philosophy is how can we maximize the amount of face time with students? Because then guess what, guys? Once we give that plan, I don't know how many teachers are going to want to be able to come back in that environment. So now you know why everything is contingent upon everything else, and we'll work through it. You know, we're going to have to work through it. And then at the end of the day, it could be like, there's no way. So I can.
If I were a teacher, I would want to send in some kids home. Because sometimes kids get sent back to the classroom, and even when they're not feeling well, there's a very high bar for sending a kid home in the elementary school historically. And so if I'm the teacher in that classroom and I say, this kid's coughing, and I send him to the nurse, I don't want that kid. Like as a teacher, we have to give them. I think
the teacher wouldn't send them home. They're not a nurse. So keep that in mind. They're not a medical professional. But this protocol that you saw in place with the pre-screening process for athletics is going to apply. And it has that in there. So to me, but I got to be honest, I also have heard from medical people who are way on the other end and be so restrictive that it's impossible to implement what they're saying.
And I've heard on the other extreme, medical people that think that our kids is what could stop this because they could develop.
Yeah.
It depends who you talk to.
So what I'm hearing is you guys are not opposed to continuing with the possibility of that. We have a lot of work to do. obviously.
And you mentioned that you were concerned about us being in the minority.
Yes.
Said that so fast. Why would we care about that? What's specific?
If across this, if it will cost us some money, and if, well, some people, I'll be honest with you, some people it'll cost them so much. I know some districts said, we have to go full remote because hybrid or anything else is way too much. We want to do it, we can't afford it. Therefore, we're going to go to this approach. And so I think that kind of like the flexible instructional day fit, we were one of 80 school districts in Pennsylvania. That with it is going to cause some scrutiny from your plan. Well, why is Bermudian Springs doing this model? And these people are not. And I think we're all unique. We have to be prepared for that. I'm anticipating that's the why.
We have the power
Yeah.
of one campus.
So if I'm a parent who is choosing, my options for school, and I can understand why some districts would say that they're going to go full online, because then you're competing in a fair environment, right? So if we say we're going full back to classroom, there may be some people who say, well, I'm not doing that. I'm going to put my kids in the sun.
So you're exactly correct. And so our approach, if we do that, anybody who wants to elect to go online, obviously our first priority is Eagles Academy. And here's why. I cannot expect a 3rd or 4th grade teacher to be teaching 17 kids and providing a blended learning environment for another 5 kids because they're staying home. That's not fair. And so I think we have a structure and a system with Eagles Academy that's where I would want those students to enroll.
But I would push back and say that at a different cyber school, you do get, it's not face-to-face, person to person, but you do get that face-to-face synchronous learning environment.
Right.
Understanding is that Eagles Academy is not.
Not the way it's structured. You're exactly correct. I will come back, the devil's advocate, and I'll tell you that our academic performance from our students in Eagles Academy and in our school compared to any cyber school, it's not even close. So when you want to talk about ultimate performance, so yes, they provide synchronous learning, but has that translated into higher student achievement? Go look at the school performance profile records. All of those cyber schools and compare them to us. They do. I don't know if there's one who's outperformed us.
While there might not be scheduled synchronous activities, we do have mentors that do reach out, that will be proactive, that do call the students, that do check on the students, and their social emotional.
Right.
I get that. I'm just back to, can we improve our Eagles Academy a little?
Oh, sure. And keep in mind, that's a prepackaged program. And we absolutely are. So if you remember, our own teachers are graders now. And so that never used to happen. And I'll talk about more in private sessions, some ideas I have with personnel related to that. So I do think that some enhancements related to that are definitely in play. Yep. Okay.
Excuse me, Shane, pardon me. I'm going to have to leave the meeting now.
Okay.
All right.
Dave, thanks so much.
Sure.
All right. Okay. All of our principals and Keila, thanks so much for being with us for the roadmap. I really appreciate it. You're more than welcome to stay. We have multiple other items, but if you want to check out, it's okay. So I really appreciate being with us tonight. Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Say that again.
That's fine. I just did that. I think my all the stuff you presented, a lot of questions about some of the deficiencies that maybe parents and stuff you've seen online. We can't guarantee them going back, but how we can go back as well. Now and some of the deadlines, like it's advertisement for what we actually do. That's the thing that the parents or whatever the community then too, I still think they're making their decisions now. So parents in the community are gonna decide whether or not they're gonna give Bermudian a chance in the fall now. Like that's happening right now. So everything that you laid out, like we just spent like an hour and a half on it, and I wish every parent had the opportunity to see that. It's very impressive, and what you put out is very well done. And the detailed talk responses you gave answered so many concerns that I think lots of parents have. You have them in your presentation, spot on, was awesome. But our parents aren't going to do that. So so I think our media needs to have, like you said, it's gonna be on the website, so that's some of the things that too, like, we need like a bullet point presentation of, here's our expectation that we'll be back in the fall. That our expectation is hopefully we'll be able to go full on like we always have. But then here might answer some of the questions about students won't have to wear masks, but parents will. Just those types of answers that we have to be more forthcoming and promote what the community is able to. And that face-to-face, I think, is the selling point that Dr. Hodges, you mentioned all the time. That's our selling point. That's why we are the better option than cyber. But to make that too, because the number one thing parents are afraid of is they all want that too, but they're all afraid that we're going to go red, and then come December, we'll be back in November or December,
Or that
we'll be back in September, it'll be fine. Exactly.
Right.
And then everything will fall apart.
So I need your help, because when parents talk to you guys, I need your help. Okay. One, I do not believe they need to make a decision today. There are 65 days between now and the start of school. So I'll say to you, if you back map, and I try to figure out what has happened in the previous 65 days up to now, what's changed in the world. So if you go back 65 days, we're in early April. Think about how much our lives have changed in the previous 65 days. So now take that same approach, move forward 65 days. And if we apply the same amount of change, it's unbelievable. I don't think it'll be that much, but we're also in so many unknowns. So in my opinion, and this is what I would say, first off, all of the presentations are out on the website. Click on the COVID, click on the right-hand side, and I forget what it's titled. It's the first presentation. Roadmap to reopen.
I read that roadmap, but this information.
This is new, correct.
I mean,
have before presentation, have the district emails, the phone call saying, hi, this is Dr. Hodges. I'd like to inform you that on the website, that kind of stuff I think is powerful. And Facebook too. And the elementary webpage, middle school webpage, all those webpages, click these links, that kind of thing that lasts as much as
So full disclosure, I think I've been trying to be very targeted in communication because I know you as a user, if all of a sudden we communicate with you 6 times and we spread it out, you're gonna be like, oh. So I've tried to be very channeled. And so what I'm trying to do at the same time strategically, and I gotta be honest with you, the survey committee took me off guard by saying, let's wait. Because we believe that the survey will be impacted by people entering Adams County, going about their business in green. We don't know what green is. We've only been in it since Friday. So let's give them a little bit of time. So my goal is to prepare this information, share some out. I'm gonna put together a video, and then say, oh, by the way, here's a really important survey. We need your feedback. And to do it all at one shot. But again, you guys, if you look at our roadmap, it talks about stages and reaching out and getting feedback. And so right now we've got 42 people that are involved just in our own committee. And now we're reaching out. And now you guys are an extension. And this is a public meeting. It'll be out there. We're getting that information that goes out there to get feedback. You were a litmus test for some of the things that Dr. Fox and Justin and just the bigger picture for us to feel your support. Because at the end of the day, I'll be getting emails, you'll be getting emails, and I want to make sure that we're all philosophically, I feel like we're all on the same page. But I gotta be honest, I didn't know. I mean, I know people talk about, the biggest topic is face masks. That's why I wanted to be able to get an answer to take that conversation off the plate, because we spent a lot of time on that one thing, but there's so many other things. So my plan, I have to get our production team ready to go, is to be articulate and to put something out and speak to the community and give them an update and ask them to complete a survey all in one, so it's packaged. And I got to tell you, the other thing that I've challenged the group, I don't want to rely just on technology. I don't want to miss people, okay? And maybe Mr. Wool, if you can confirm, I was going to ask you to check your wife. I believe when you're talking reliability, if I can get a return rate of 50%.
It actually doesn't even have to be 50%. I could ask her to do your analysis for you, but it's how many surveys do you plan on putting out?
Well, right now we're 1. There's going to be a follow-up to get more detail, but right now, what I'm looking for is, my goal is a 50% return rate, so that I can apply percentages to the masses and start to do some scalability. So I don't want to rely just on the technology. We're going to have to make some phone calls. to get people to get to responses. We were very successful doing that with when homeroom teachers did that. This is important enough that I want to take that additional step to make sure that I'm hearing the voices of people. I think it's important. So it's taken a lot to be able to spin that up. So that's in the plan. And listen, I'm telling you, I'd love for it to be by the end of the weekend. It might be into early next, but it's on the radar. Like, I want to be able to do a high quality, be thoughtful. I have a meeting Thursday at 9 o'clock with a survey. So I think I've got a couple of people working on our ideas that'll be ready to go with some tweaks. And if we're good to go there, then I'm going to put it into action. And also, I'm also prepared for this, just so people get you. The survey is going to be for people coming to school next school year. Okay? So this year's seniors that we haven't had graduation yet are not going to get the survey because they're graduating. Incoming kindergartners are going to get it. So I'm mindful to know that I'm going to have people in the community saying, hey, why didn't I get the survey? And you've got some new folks coming in and said, oh my gosh, this is my first experience with the school district. And so that's different. So I want to make sure that I set that up. And I say that because if you get questions, I want you to be able to explain that little bit of a difference.
So there's two people consider using parents, like organizations, us. It doesn't have to be just teachers. I don't know how much.
So listen.
Everyone a phone script and a phone log.
It is. And I remember, I think, Dave, you would even ask, hey, if I can help you do lunches, like, I'm telling you, like, yeah, like the whole, hey, call, I'm an alumni of whatever university, do I make a donation? Like, I'm at that point that I want to put a voice and try to organize how can we capture the information from people. And so yes, I will definitely keep it in mind.
We kind of dipped our toe in that a little bit when we reached out to staff members. We reached out to some community members and some parents early on just to get some initial feedback. This was, I would say, prior to Memorial Day, when we just collected some initial feedback, first of all, just to help us.
Every member on our team, I challenged everybody to talk to 3 people, a parent, a teacher, and a student, just to get some preliminary feedback. And it was good, and it really guided our work just a little bit early on with that feedback.
It was fun, yeah.
So stay tuned.
Do we have any idea how many cases were actually in our district? It was 290 in all Adams County.
I have, to date, I have not received any phone calls from the Department of Health indicating that there's something connected to the school district for a case. That's all I can tell you. Is my thought was we would get calls by the Department of Health. Other districts have. Okay, and then that's when they issue the communication. Somebody's been exposed. It was you saw districts in the paper about that. To date, knock on wood, I have not had that phone call. Okay. Thanks. Really good. It's a lot. Really good conversation.
All the stuff you guys presented still doesn't answer that one parent that would fear their irrational fear necessarily. But just, I know the chances that the kids will have the same schedule from September to June, like the likelihood of that, they're still concerned about that. So they don't want to risk Bermudian. So our communication still has to be, here's the benefits of Bermudian and why it's worth that risk.
And listen, and I've also resounded myself that there's going to be some people, no matter what we do, just aren't going to feel comfortable. And I'm okay. I've had it. My first email through this whole thing was from that type of a parent. Something that had a medical concern. I get it. But again, I want people to just, like I share with you guys, our job is to give information to making a good informed decision, and that's what we're going to continue to do. But also, I want to be mindful to not make a promise we can't uphold, or to commit to something that, that's the slippery slope we're trying to navigate. All right, the next topic, CARES funding.
By the way, he just looked up something.
Okay, so we wanted to touch base and provide some information to the board about the CARES funding and what the eligible expenses are and what things we are looking at utilizing this funding for. So the CARES funding, it's 2 different buckets, okay? The first bucket is the PCCD grant, which just came out from the state. That's the state grant. Before this was considered your safety and security money. So now this is for 2021, it's earmarked definitely specifically for COVID-related expenses. And I'm not going to read through all the bullet points there, but this first slide shows you the eligible expenses that we are allowed to spend this money on. And then June 20th is when the application opens up in the e-grant system, which is this system that the state utilizes. And then the funding will start rolling in July. They want to get this money out to districts so that you have it. And it's a one-time funding stream. I want to make that clear. It's one time. It's this year, 2021. You're not going to get it based on what we know at this point. So going to the next slide, it shows what the dollar amount that we have and what we're planning on spending it. So the amount that we're scheduled to receive is that $255,420. All right, and this is through a formula that the state has utilized. Every district gets 125,000, but then based on the formula, this is what ours came out to be. So some of the ideas and things that we are going to be utilizing this funding for is a refresh of all the MacBooks in the district. So all administrators, all teachers have MacBooks. And we, as you see from the previous eligible things that we're allowed to spend this money on, this is what all this falls under that. So we're looking at using this funding as well to pay all iPad leases in the current budget. And you can see the dollar amount associated there. The cleaning supplies are at that point as well. So those items from the second, third, fourth, the second, third, and fourth items are all money that is coming out of our current budget that we didn't have. This funding was not, we didn't realize it was there. So this is freeing up that dollar amount.
5 years old. And so did you talk about credit?
No.
So interesting. So we were planning long-term to have that in the budget because we need to replace it. Obviously, I think this past spring showed the importance of having the tools, right? So we've heard that Apple retains value. So we sent Apple the information of our laptops, and they have several third-party vendors that buy back devices. So right now, and they grade them out. We believe that our laptops, current laptops, will get anywhere from $250 to $350 back, which would cut our cost almost in half once we buy and get them back. No, that's going to be the net because of that buyback. And so so keep in mind, the first time we bought MacBooks, this first purchase was over $200,000. Now we can do it for 70. And so we were planning long-term to have this in the budget. So it's actually going to be freeing up money in future budgets. And we have the chance to do that now. So we think it's an unbelievable opportunity. The other thing that we're contemplating is allowing staff to purchase a laptop, establishing a price people have asked. And so giving our staff, teachers and staff members the first opportunity to get a device they know what it's like. And then those that are left will have a company, they take them out, they grade them, and then we would get the money back. So
How about a student's family?
but and that could be something that we open up. Yes, so I think
So many of our families may not have.
yeah. And
Some classes, I mean, depending on what we're doing, if you are in a class like Caleb had, like I mentioned before that,
Yeah, CAD, yeah.
So he had to put in, would go on the iPad, he had to get the computer. Maybe some students like that, we
Correct.
might need to keep them and provide them to families. The kids in those classes.
And we have them. CAD actually, we don't have CAD for a Mac. Like our lab, we didn't convert
Most of
over.
the CAD,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
iPhone.
Yeah. So because of these, that wouldn't be compatible. So anyhow, I think it's a great opportunity. Sorry, Justin. Great opportunity to pull money out of a budget and refresh and get a good quality product.
So as you can see, the other items here are all related to cleaning, sanitizing, PPE type things. Hand sanitizer, obviously, I never thought I'd see the day where we're spending that amount of money on hand sanitizer, but it's not cheap. And this is eligible for it, so we're definitely going down that route. And the other thing I'll mention about the hand sanitizer, for the longest time we were buying non-alcoholic hand sanitizer. Well, no longer, and with that being, I mean, has to be minimally 60% alcohol. So that increases the price as well. So, but they're the ideas and things that we will be spending this money on. So now,
Like stuff. One of the things that do is a lot of my scouts count them on relative to them too. So hand sanitizer knows it costs $15, not $5. But like our garden market, $2 or so, but it's another $1 goods out there. So this works with
okay, thank you.
The second part of the CARES Act is the elementary and secondary. Is the elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund or the ESSER's eligible expenses. Very similar to the PCCD eligible items. It's to coordinate preparedness and response efforts related to COVID-19, to purchase educational technology, implement a system to improve LEA preparedness and response efforts. And I'll skip over just the last bullet there and move on to our district plan for the ESSER funds. We were allocated $214,010. The application will go through the PAE grant system. Some of the expenses that we're planning to utilize the funds for are future iPad leases. There's a non-public equitable contribution of $1,862 that's required. iPad purchase for the grade level. AGI protective cases that is also with the insurance, jam management, and additional Wi-Fi hotspots.
So keep in mind, all of these things that you're seeing were into our general budget that we're now going to be able to cover with the grant and pull out. And that's what we're trying to maximize. It's pretty good. We're very thankful. Bless you.
And we have until September of 2022 to spend this allocation of funds. The plan for this has not been submitted yet, any grants, but it's on, once it's submitted, then the funding begins to roll in periodically.
But I will reiterate, it's a one-time shot. You're not getting this any more than this year.
We don't think they're gonna pull a government corporate move, do we?
No, and so that has actually been, the CARES funding has been pretty interesting. And so there are been states who have interpreted things differently, but Pennsylvania thankfully interpreted that, and this is how it was intended. In order for Pennsylvania to receive CARES Act funding, they had to maintain their current level of expenditure for schools. If they didn't, they don't get the money. Thankfully. So now they don't backfill, which is exactly everybody's hesitation early on. Now there's no backfill. It's definitely there. We've got that assurance. Some states though didn't interpret it that way, and they are doing the backfill. So thankfully we're not in that case. So all right. We have. It's approved. Education is fully funded for the year.
I thought they were only passing a preliminary 6-month budget.
They passed a 5-month budget, except for education and
Okay.
Yeah, education's the only one that's 12 months.
12 months. Yeah, so we know. So thankfully, we know exactly what it's going to be, and we're the only group. So we're very, very lucky. And we've talked to Tornecker, and we've talked to them and said, really much we appreciate it to have that stability. So yeah.
So we're good for 2021. Beyond that, we'll see.
All right. Thank you, guys. Yes.
The other thing I don't want to let this, I may forget. I'm a little uncomfortable after having that hour and a half roadmap, waiting until July 22nd to hear the next road. I don't know how, as a board member, I don't know how we get around that. I know we can cut 9 days off of it by having our building and grounds a week, 9 days from tonight. So you can update us in 9 days if we so choose to use that meeting, that time for this.
Right.
We won't have that survey back.
And I think,
And we will.
I don't want to argue with you, Mike, what's wrong with what I'm saying. Just hear me out. Just hear me out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That gets us 9 more days of information. And just like you said to Matt, tell me 65 days ahead what's going to be based on 65 days in the past. So in 9 days, things have changed. In 9 days, more things will change. Is there any way we can have an update, something between the 25th of June and the 22nd of July?
Absolutely. And so I can do that.
As a board.
I can do that electronically, and I will try to provide you updates by saying, hey, here's where we are with the plan. If we get to the point where, like tonight, I'll be honest with you, I needed feedback about your level of comfort about the K-6 approach, right? Like that was key. If we get to that point, that's where I'll say, we're more than likely, we may have to have a special meeting just to get information.
And that's where I was.
And there's-
That's what I was going to suggest.
And
Yes.
the-
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, but I was cutting you off. That's fair enough. Right. Yep.
Well, we can strategically, and I would much rather strategically say, hey, let's spin up a special meeting. We need a checks and balance here, checking with all of you guys. We can do that.
Yeah.
And it could just be, and it could be a meeting that we're not voting. It's a workshop. We can post. Absolutely. Yep.
We can ask questions.
Yep.
We can play
Absolutely.
devil's advocate.
By the way,
I'm willing to give up another evening.
Yeah.
To be.
Well, listen, at some point, and I just don't know what it is. There's going to become a time where I'm going to need feedback. Yeah, and I want it to be strategic, and I want it to be powerful, and I want it to be worth our time. So absolutely. And I would say, let us kind of navigate through, and at some point, I want a checks and balance of just saying, here's where we are right now. I'll give you something that we've talked about. So even as Adams County Superintendents, our goal is we want to lock ourselves into a room and go through this representing our own districts and look and see what it looks like across the county. We all just have to get to a certain point so that we can do that, but that's one of our strong desires. We also want to pull in Adams County Department of Health just to kind of get that medical representation from the county and get some feedback. We're just not quite there yet. So when we get there, my guess is after we have that, that's when I'll want to get some feedback from you guys. So stay tuned. But yeah, I don't see how we can go without meeting and having a conversation, not voting, between now and July 22nd. I just don't know that next week's going to be productive because we're still going to be in the middle. But early July, 2 weeks ahead of the 22nd, something along those lines, I can see being a possibility. Yep.
Okay.
Insurance, Justin.
Okay. This is actually very good news. In fact, that
Compared to the budget, we were able to save $13,000 for our insurance renewal. So as you can see, looking at the bottom line for annual total, We were 137,810 in 2019. In 2020, we're 147,998. And so of that $10,000 increase, over $8,000 of it was workers' comp. And that follows the same trend that we expected based on our high utilization 3 years ago and then 2 years ago. So next year, the first one that was a high utilizer will fall off of our experience, but we still have the second one on. So Eastern Alliance, who is the workers' comp, has been very, very good to deal with. They could have increased our rate by 25%. That's the max, and that's before we fell. But that increase is around 12%. So as you can see, our experience modifier increased from 1.169 to 1.269. So obviously, ideally, you want your experience mod below 1. 1 is normal. Anything above 1, you're high risk. Anything below 1 is good. And for the longest time, we were below 1 until we had 2 incidents and once you have an incident, they live with you for 3 years. So again, we'll be staying with the same Utica is the insurance company for everything outside of workers' comp, and then an Eastern Alliance is workers' comp.
Thank you. Next topic, an update on the elementary boiler.
Okay. We've finally had some things happen other than spinning wheels. The last time I spoke at the May board meeting, I reported out about the fact that we were not able to hold the existing contractor, HVAC contractor, liable for anything and that was through Dave Jones, our solicitor's consultation, that we can't, there's nothing that we can hold them to. We would spend more money getting anything from them than it was worth. So we've worked with Crabtree, and I'll get to that piece of what we hopefully, we haven't finalized it just yet, but I have a very good feeling based on the conversation that Dr. Hotchkiss and myself had with Anthony today. I'll get to that secondary, but we were able to get some quotes on some different things related to the situation at the elementary school boilers. So keep in mind that that project, and I've already shared this with the board months ago, but that project was under budget by $319,820. Okay, so the thought, it's in the construction fund. So this isn't general fund money. This is construction fund. So anything that we're talking about, what I'm going to be talking about here, will definitely be coming out of construction fund as well. So the two options that I had said to the board originally were looking at replacing the existing piping for the fuel oil, because we knew that's where the metal filings were coming from, or looking at totally converting to propane, which is what we're doing at the middle school. My initial thought, along with Jason, was that the cost difference, I would expect that to replace the existing piping for fuel oil would be less costly than switching to propane, but you have to weigh the ability of going to propane and the efficiencies, the cleaner burn, and looking at it long term. Well, the information I received back today sort of dispels that thought. So we asked Bonfido, who is the company that we've had working with us, and we feel very comfortable, very pleased with the work they've done on the elementary school boilers. Provide us a quote for both repairs. So looking at the fuel replacement, the existing piping, and also converting to propane. The good thing about them is they're co-stars, so this is something that we would not need to bid by any stretch because obviously they're co-stars. The surprising thing that came back to me was that there's so much unknown for them on the fuel oil line, replacing the fuel lines, because it's not just inside the building, it's underground, going from the tank to the building, and then once you get into the building and all that. So they weren't very comfortable. So the number I'm going to provide you is a budget cost, so it's not a firm number. He did share that he felt that it was on the higher end, but it could exceed it. So that number that he provided me to replace all the fuel lines from the tank to the boilers was, again, a budget cost of between $25,000 and $30,000. Okay, and I would say that we wouldn't have 100% confidence that that would definitely correct the issues we're having. We feel we definitely should substantially improve it, yes. But long term, could the existing things that are happening right now happen again? The answer is yes. The pricing for the conversion to propane. So that actually had two different quotes from two different vendors. So Bonfido provided us the cost to do the new piping from right outside the building, in the building, and converting the current boilers from fuel oil to propane. There's a conversion in the burners in order to do that. But then also we contacted Masons, who's our current provider of propane, because propane companies need to make their money on selling propane. So in order to get the tanks, we were able to get a much better price from them. The only thing that was unknown is what was the cost difference between buying them outright or leasing them through them. And again, I was surprised to the good of what they were able to provide. So first, the amount that money that, and this is a firm number because everything is known for transferring to propane from Bonfido is $16,900. The amount that Masons provided us to purchase, it'll be 4 1,000-gallon tanks that they'd be providing us. And it would include regulators per tank. And then they also provided the first fill would be at 99 cents a gallon. And then we're locked in for the first winter, throughout the first winter, so that's when usually our higher rates are, at $1.25 per gallon. That's actually 35 cents less than what we would have been locked in for fuel. Okay? So all next year, we're guaranteed to be at least 35 cents below where we would have been for fuel, just because of the price of propane continues to be less than fuel. The only difference, obviously, is if we purchase them outright, there are tanks, there are responsibility, because they have to be inspected. Anything would be wrong with them, we would have to take care of, spend the money. So the difference between purchasing them and basically leasing them, and it's a 5-year contract, what it is if we lease them, it's $19,018 if we purchase them outright. It's $4,918 if we lease. The only risk that I see in leasing them is we have to stick with them through propane. I can tell you that I've checked regularly on the cost of propane through bigger corporations. Mason beats them at least by 50 cents per gallon. And when we went to Mason's about 4 years ago, we saved over $1 a gallon when we converted. So is it a risk? Very minimal that I see. And in talking with Jason, he's very, I mean, he feels very comfortable. And again, the way the Masons make their money is by us buying the propane. That's why their cost to lease so much cheaper. And again, I'll reiterate, there's inspections on the tanks, and that would all fall on propane on Masons as if we lease them. Okay. And if there's, God forbid, if they would go under, I mean, obviously those tanks are ours. If they're on our property, if they go under, I mean, what would they do? So
I'll answer that question. They're tanks.
Right.
So we would then have to buy them out. Or we have to buy them from another company, Suburban or somebody else that does propane.
Correct, but we could still have the option of leasing those at a much cheaper.
Are these tanks buried?
What's that?
Are they gonna be buried?
Above ground.
No,
No, they would be
above ground. They'd be in the fenced area where
And we have
you wouldn't.
Is that $4,000 a year, or is that $4,000 for the total 5 years?
No, it's not a total. That 4,900, because they're not under the lease, they're not charging us anything for the tanks at all. What they're charging you for is the fill, that's the fill, and then the 10 hours of labor to bring, because they're going to do the piping from the tank to the building, and then Bonfita will take it from the building inside. And then the estimated parts for hookups from tank to building, that's $4,900. So to purchase them, it's $3,600 for 2 tanks with regulators, and $3,450 for no regulators. So that's $7,050 if we purchase them. If we lease them, there's no charge for the tank at all.
What happens if we want to break the agreement before 5 years?
Well, it's a 5-year contract required. So after 5 years, we would have to go back to them. And
I think what Mike said is what I want to get out of you.
I'm not sure what would make you want to get out of it.
Well,
You can't get out.
Well,
we on the floor, we purchased about 5 years ago a tank.
Sure.
For that reason, because it allowed us to go say, and we have to have a certificate there in a sleeve that says, Marty LLC owns this 500 gallon tank. It has a serial number on it.
I have my own
and you have to have that there if we want to call Suburban or Mason's or any other propane supplier and say, look, we have our own tank, we have it certified.
Yep.
What it costs? Now, we end up with Mason's. Mason's is a very, very low cost. You know, I have good experience with Mason's. They're in East Berlin, they're local, they're in this district. That's all.
I think I have to call them at my propane.
And I don't think we have a whole lot of risks going out 5 years. They know that after 5 years, we're not satisfied. We're gonna say, come get your tanks, we'll lease them off somebody else that'll give us tanks for 5 years. So we always have to have that hammer. I don't know.
Well, and we also have something in addition that we're trying to use, and actually, because of what we've just learned here, we can take the same approach for the new middle school. In our bid, we were buying the tank, and it was extremely expensive. Now that we know this, we can switch it out. We can have a savings. So Masons is looking at it. Not only can we get this business, we can get an entirely new school. And that, huge customer, huge customer.
Well, the reason why I was asking is, we used to get our propane from Littles, and then they got acquired. And when they got acquired, the price went through the roof. And we wanted to switch. At the time we didn't own our tank. We bought our tank out, switch, and we paid for the tank the first 6 months. Right, yep, that's why I was asking. It's
So-
more if they would be acquired by somebody.
So we feel good, like those two things together are less than the pipe replacement for the oil. And I will tell you that we believe that we are going to get a contribution or a credit back from Crabtree for the experience that we've had in the form of, it'll be less money that we're paying for the middle school for services. So it'll be a credit that we'll take off of that because of everything we've had to go through for the last 9-10 months.
What about the disposal of the oil tank and the old pipe?
At this point, because that burner is set up that it can be both fuel oil and propane, we don't feel we need to do anything with the tank at all because that's our backup.
It's a fiberglass tank.
Yes.
So it should last.
Should.
Just don't want a love canal thing going on here.
And so we'll make sure that it's cut off and we don't have any issues there. But I think it's an awesome opportunity. Leasing.
Leasing.
Yeah. We feel, I said to Justin, I said, tell me again, what's the downfall of leasing at no charge? What's the risk? There really is.
The only downfall is if you want to change.
You want to change providers. And we've done enough around here. We just,
I don't think bases are going to
Yeah.
the school district. Like you said, I mean, having two buildings with it, I would assume that they're going to put 4 more thousand gallon tanks
yes.
at the other school.
Plus we have here too.
8,000 gallon tanks. That's a big deal for them. I'm sure they're very happy.
Exactly. We honestly didn't know about this whole process until now. It made us look at it. So I think it's great. We like to move forward with it. We like to give the go ahead to.
You asked too about the savings of fuel oil. You asked about the volumes. Spending savings 30 cents a gallon. What's the volume of fuel oil?
Propane's a little more efficient, Matt. Per gallon, you get a few more BTUs. I stopped and talked to Ensign Sours, and they service both of them in your Springs. And depending on what efficiency of boiler you choose, basically propane's a little more efficient than you may.
At a less cost.
Don't get carried away with that, Matt. One might be 89 and the other one might be 90% efficient. So it may be a couple of percent. By and large, I think we're safe, we're not going to use any more. It's a good question.
The other thing we learned is that the larger tank you have, you will lose more propane naturally. You'll lose, it'll leak. And so the recommendation from both companies is like go smaller because you're not going to have that loss for if you get one big massive tank. And I don't know the percentage, but they both said you definitely would have that. So we're just
right. So the only thing, I mean, I was very excited getting all this information. So I asked the question because I thought the board would be excited about it as well. How far out are they? Bonfito's about 4 or 5 weeks, but they had no problem saying that it would definitely be able to be done by the start of school. Mason's is like 2 weeks. So that actually works better because we can have the tanks done first and then have that all ready. So
the boilers, match line. They were the installer of the boilers in the project. Correct. Yes. The only way they're going to get involved, they have to come back and recalibrate. What do they have to? We're going to ask them to do after the fact.
It'll be interesting. They still have some warranty startup type things, but we've been using Bonfito. So the reality of it is there's nothing, because none of this was in the scope of work, because the issue is the existing piping is what they're determining Yes, so that was not in the scope of the work for the elementary project. So that's why they're really not on the hook for it.
How much is in our current fuel tank? How much is in there?
I don't, well, it holds, it's a 10,000 gallon tank. And at most it would be 7,500 in it, but I mean, we could definitely take fuel oil out.
Well, the reason I ask is a lot of companies, fuel oil is the cheapest at summertime because they're blending, using more gas out of crude and less fuel oil, so they want to someplace to go fuel. Now it's time to fill up fuel. A lot of companies will fill up all tanks in July. I'd rather not pay to have that tank filled.
Oh, it's definitely not going to be filled.
Decide this all tomorrow and say, look, until further notice, we don't want.
Right. We call. They don't just come automatically. We call when we're ready. So I guess that's. I mean, I want to see if I can get direction from the board that you guys are okay going the propane route. I'd like to get them at least on schedule to do that, because there's nothing official that there's no action you need to take since it's co-stars. You don't need to bid. You don't need to do any of that.
Let's spend more money on the worst solution.
Okay. Before we do 13 with the final budget, I added 14 today because it just came in today. We got it, I don't know, midday, late in the day. And that's G-Force. Our contract is up. G-Force is who we've been using for quite some time now for security at events. They've done tons of things. We used a person from G-Force for the elementary school last year when we needed that, and he was awesome. And so our contract was up, so we're looking to extend for 2 more years. Like most things, their hourly rate did go up a couple bucks. But we've been very, very pleased with their service, their quality, and so we would like to continue. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I mean, just 18, 19, and 19, 20. They always do 2-year contracts. That was $23. This is $25.
Boy, they take a chunk. I know it didn't be their cards. They take a chunk.
Nope.
And this is based on what we use, right?
Yep. Correct. So, yep, we don't have an event, they don't get paid. But it just enters into we can use them as we need to. So I'll give you, for instance, we're going to need them for graduation on July 31st. And so this will come into play for, and we're one of the few districts that actually got them to do traffic control because they typically don't do it. So we've leveraged them to help with football games here because of crowds, and so they're pretty good at that. And so we'll definitely be using their services for that event too. So, okay. Budget. Justin, is this the one?
Yeah. So obviously, what I provided here is the budget summary on the 3 different options. So zero tax increase, midpoint, which is 1.8, and the Act 1 index, which is 3.6. The changes that have occurred from the preliminary budget to now are listed there. And as you can see, we had a retirement that came into play, and you see the dollar amount associated with that. I mentioned about the decrease in the cost of insurance that we just went over. You see that calculated there. And then the final 2 are the revenue side, the $255,420 for the PCCD grant, and then the increase in title funding as Perkins as well is listed there. So adding those all up, total budget adjustments are $309,692. That's a combination of a decrease in expenditures and an increase in revenue. So as you can see, the yes. So so originally in the May preliminary budget had a $1,988,409 deficit. Now that deficit at Act 1 index is $1,678,717. So as you can see, option, that's showing how much fund balance would need to be used to balance the budget. I just wanted to share, I don't know, I think it's just information for the board. Out of the 6 districts in Adams County, we are 3rd in millage. So I will say that we will stay 3rd no matter what is done. But that's where we're at. So we're right in the middle of the pack as far as Adams County is concerned. I don't know if there's any, I mean, nothing has changed outside of those 2 items from the expenditure side, and those 2 items on the revenue side are the items as well. So what I need to know for tomorrow is what option the board would like me to bring for approval.
My suggestion is I think that we're going to be faced with a very difficult budget situation. And I think it is going to be more expensive to run school next year. And because it's money you never will get back, I think that we should go for what we intended to go for, which was that maximum. And I'm thinking that for the good of the students as they're in the spring school. I know that we struggle with, can we keep the teaching positions that we currently have? And I just don't want to put us behind the 8 ball next year, or further behind the 8 ball next year or the year after that. It would feel good to say, hey, let's not raise taxes, or let's just do half of that. And it would make some people smile. I think it would not make some people smile as well. If I were a parent, I would be upset if the board said, hey, let's shortchange the budget today. Maybe if I were an older tax-paying citizen, I would be upset if we do raise it. But they're going to be upset no matter what. But it's money that we can never recoup. We can't double we can't double the bills that we need next year to make up for the shortfall. And that scares me a little bit. So that's my thought. That's my what, 3.6 cents, is that?
Any other thoughts?
My concern in all of this is, we have a difficult budget situation, but a lot of our families in the community do right now as well.
Speak up a little bit.
Well, everybody has a bad budget situation right now, right? I mean, unemployment numbers are awful, right? And, I don't know what they look like locally, but they're probably similar to what the national average, state averages look like. So, they're looking down that budget barrel as well, right? And, I'm having a hard time justifying going and asking people for more money that don't have reliable income.
I totally agree with you 100%. I mean, people are at times are really tough right now. I mean, I don't know anybody sitting here, I mean, you all have great jobs and that, but I know a lot of people that can't even put food on their table. And I have a tough time telling them I'm raising at 3.6%. That's not what they elected me to do, especially at this time. They elected me to watch things and everything. I just agree with Doug. I cannot go 3.6. It's just too much.
Can I ask, what is the average household, what is the financial impact of 3.6% on a person with $100,000 house?
If you have, Justin, I don't want to switch screens. So the last presentation, we always put in by municipality average value of the property and how that translates to the dollar amount. So Justin, if you want to, because
the highest was $9 a month.
I don't need, yeah, and I don't, yeah. Some,
If I recall.
do you know what I'm talking about, Justin? Your presentation. It could just be, it would be in the May Caucus folder. There you go.
So these are annual amounts. These aren't. And this is at the 3.6. So East Berlin, $85 a year. Hamilton Township, which we have 6 properties, is $93 a year. Huntington, $83 a year. Lattimore, $85. Reading, 86. York Springs, 65.
So that 83, 85 is $7
So my thought is.
a month.
So some families that be a significant hardship, but for many families, many taxpayers would be able to absorb that. And if we don't do it, what will we have to cut for our kids next year?
We might still have to cut things. I got on the board back in 2000, and the first year we had a ton of money. This was a long time ago. We had a ton of money, and they wanted to raise it to the maximum. And I didn't feel that we needed to do that because, and somebody pointed out to me, well, Ruth, I said, let my friends or my constituents or whatever go on vacation this year. Well, they might not have the money next year to pay. Okay? That's what they said to me. I said, let them go on vacation and enjoy themselves. We do not need that money this year. That was back in 2000. We still are going to make cuts. We're definitely going to make cuts. There's no doubt about it. With this COVID thing, it is stressing people out. It has stressed people. It stresses my kids out that have to work at home and they have to try to take care of their kids with cyber school or whatever you want to call it. Which one would I vote for? To be honest with you, none.
0%?
0%. That's what I would vote for. I probably would be willing to go with the 1.80. But if y'all go with the 3 point whatever, you know, I'm having a tough time with 1.80, but it's still better than the other. Because it still looks like we're trying to do something with the situation that's happened now.
See, I think it should either be 0 or 1.6 because if you do 1.8, people think you raise your taxes. Not very many people are.
I would go for 0, but I don't know how many people here are going to go for 0. I will definitely go for 0. They would love that. You know, we got to live within our means. We're building a new school. We're doing all this other stuff, and this could come around again. And I was unemployed for 2 weeks. I've never been unemployed in 50 years. Fortunately, I have a savings account that I put into. And I was up, my office borrowed the money to bring us all back. So, but there are some people out there that don't have anything. And that $1,200 that the government gave you, that wasn't.
So
Justin, when we look at our shortfalls looking forward this 3 years, I know they're rough projections, but where does the fund balance go to 0 or negative?
What I would say is that I will share in executive session more specifics on how the projections are done, based on other conversations and have in public.
Fair.
But that plays in.
Okay.
But under all the circumstances, it's actually the last page of the presentation that's out there, what index is out there. But under all of them, 0, the midpoint, or actual index, it all turns negative.
Justin, is that right there on the screen?
It all turns negative in 22, 23. You just have, obviously, you have more, you have the actual index, you have a little less in the midpoint, and then even less in the freeze.
And this is assuming going to index every year.
Correct, yes. Yes.
The things you need to cover in executive session, will that have pertinent information for this discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that.
What you were saying,
Yes.
Well, there's pertinent data that we can't talk about in public.
So let's let everybody say what they want to say and then we'll keep moving. So we can hear from you.
I've always supported the max in my previous 8 years. And the first 2 years of this go on the board. I've talked with several of you one-to-one and expressed my concern this particular year. I have a real hard time going max this year. I'm a little like Ruth. I would support 0 or I would support 1.8. It may only be in, it may be just a token, $180,000 one way or the other, and I don't want to diminish that importance. But when you're looking at a $30+ million budget, it's a small token, but we're going through this pandemic that is unprecedented in our lifetime, even in our parents' lifetime. And I think this is the year that we have to be sensitive to the hardships. As you were reading through those property values, I represent one of the townships that has the lower property value, York Springsboro and Huntington Township. And with that, we have, maybe some tougher going. A lot of it is in agriculture. Agriculture has suffered these last 4 months. I spoke to that a little earlier, and I'm sensitive to that. I'm in agriculture. I live it hourly, and so I'm going to stick with either 0 or 1.8, whatever we can find consensus with the group. I guess my preference would be to do some. Maybe the 1.8 would be a little more preferred over the 0, but that's where I'm feeling it right now.
The 3.6 is the one that I prefer. I think it's our responsibility as a board is to taxpayers and people in the area. And I think we best serve them by providing them the best possible product. So we provide great outcomes, as Shane detailed before. We have great graduation rates, we have great test scores, we have college, people going to college, to the military, and careers. And that's the investment that we need to do. So we ask the entire community to make that investment. So that requires a little bit more from the people that live in this area. We're essentially asking we're looking for all potential avenues to get money to make sure that our district can continue to deliver those outcomes the best possible way. So I think it's the responsibility of the board then to find all those methods to do that. So by potentially leaving any money on the table, by not asking the most for everyone to continue to make that investment in public education, if it is 180,000, that's still going to be an additional teacher. It's going to be an additional program. And right now as a board, we have an opportunity to continue to have music and arts and foreign languages and extracurriculars longer than we can, the longest that we can. So we need to continue to make those investments. So that's why I definitely support the 3.6.
Is Corey still awake? Corey?
Yeah, I'm still awake.
Any thoughts?
Oh, it's a real tough decision which way to go. And I'm not sure which direction to go with that.
Well, also, there are some companies that are thinking of freezing wages. So these people aren't even gonna get minimum, cost of living raise, because these companies have suffered dearly, And gasoline is going up all the time. For what reason? There's no reason for gasoline.
Actually, gasoline going
Food
down.
is going up. I
Food's
haven't
going
been to a
up. Food's
clothing
going up.
store, but they're gouging you in food. I'm the food queen. I go to the grocery store all the time. I know my prices. Procter & Gamble, Tide. I got 100 fluid ounces or whatever it was. Guess what they did? They make new bottles with 92 ounces. They went out and charged the same price that I was paying 100. Now that might seem like nothing to you guys, but you take that 8 ounces times millions of people that buy Tide, they're making money. And they went out and made new bottles because I bought 100, and when I brought this bottle home and it said 92 ounces, I'm thinking, wait a minute. I mean, these are things that I notice at the store. Some things I have to buy like that, but other things I don't, like hamburger for $6 a pound. I don't need to ever eat hamburger for $6 a pound. Now that price came down. Pork, I love pork. I wasn't given $3.89 for a pork loin. It came down. My husband bought 2 today at $1.99 a pound. But I wouldn't pay double that. I wouldn't eat it. So there you go. There's the cost of food. And like Dave said earlier, they were dumping milk. I know they were dumping milk. Before you were like, you could only buy like 1 gallon of it or whatever. Why? Because people were buying it all up and hoarding it, and then they were dumping it because I'm sure they'd spoiled. So, all these costs. Okay, maybe you think everything's good with, everything for the school, and we don't want to cut this, and we don't want to cut that. But somebody has to say, wait a minute here, we can't afford this right now. You know what I mean? And you're talking about cyber schools and people taking their kids out of our school and going to the cyber school. We're not going to get that money. And Eagles Academy is the greatest academy. Whether or not it has stuff that cyber school is, and it might have a few flaws, but I had a grandson in Eagle Academy, and he graduated because of that. Okay, and he couldn't deal with this school. He couldn't deal with the school. I love this school. He couldn't deal with it. I still don't understand it. But everybody's to each his own. But he came to my house and did Eagles Academy, and I saw him. And he graduated from here because of Eagles Academy. So we all have different kids, we all have different, smart ones, not so smart, some that like school, some that get in trouble all the time. So, these people, you want to have everything for the school, but if the people are pulling them out to go to cyber school, we're paying how much for cyber school? Because they don't want to take a chance on Eagles Academy. So.
I do think with some of the points you're making, it too makes a case for a 3.6 increase, because some of the reasons that we don't have ideas of our funding for the future. So the state might change their reimbursements at some point in the future, we're unsure of that. We also don't know what impact we might have on cyber schools, and therefore our tuition that we have to pay cyber schools, that might be a bigger part of our budget. And if we compound that by choosing ourselves to leave some money on the table, so then that has the compounding effect. We're choosing to leave money on the table. Our cyber school tuition goes way up because those students have gone away, and then eventually the state changes their budget next year, and then we might not get the money that we expect. So that we have to plan, and that's the responsible decision, and to take all that into account, and therefore then be responsible stewards to get the money that we need to us.
We are not like other school districts. We have a lot of farming here. We do not have industry here to support a Cumberland Valley school or a Gettysburg school. We have no industry here. We have farming. Okay, we have people that don't make the money. We don't have all these doctors and lawyers that make high-class money here in this area. So therefore, if you like that, I would say move there. Don't come here to the rural school, because we cannot afford everything that a rich school can afford.
To me, it's almost immaterial, right? Because you take all those things into account, right? So this state may adjust how they do reimbursement. We may see an increase in the amount of students going to a cyber charter school, right, which would increase its tuition rates. But is the compounding effect of that 3.6, knowing that a potential fund balance shortage is coming in 2 years, right? Is that material, right? You change it by a month, by 3?
Not even that. It
Yeah,
changes the
right.
size of that imbalance. That imbalance is going to happen in 2 years regardless.
It's going to happen in 2 years regardless. So you're stuck making those same decisions.
But isn't it the decision between 2 programs and 8 programs? Decision between 2 teachers and 6 teachers. So why make a decision now that could potentially save programs and teachers? Either way, we're going to be -2 or -1.6.
Right.
But we can choose to be -1.6, which is better than -2. So let's choose to be the lower negative.
Well, we don't want to make decisions as if we're rearranging deck chairs on the fencing. We thought 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right before I got on board, the projections were, before I was even off the board, we were supposed to be bankrupt. And we're not. And so.
That's only because we made the responsible, this board before my involvement with Short and maybe yours, made responsible financial decisions for many years. So we need to continue to take the most responsible financial decision for the most long-term financial health of the school. You're talking about how we're going to have information in private session, but then don't we still want to then have the debate that we're having now then back in public session? We're going to go private to share some information that will affect this conversation and then come back to public.
But the stuff that we talk about, we can't talk about in public.
I understand, but I just meant the debate that we're having now about what we're finally going to decide still needs to be decided.
Right. And which is part of the reason why I'm not contributing, because I
and
have
keep-
visibility into that conversation.
Let me process through. Keep in mind, this is a non-voting meeting. The voting meeting is tomorrow. So this is a workshop conversation discussion. So there's a definite difference in.
Yeah, we're not necessarily asking for a tally,
Correct, because we can't take a vote right now.
but I think it's important to hear everybody out. Because we all have different perspectives.
Ready? Private session?
Yes, but can we take the file break?
Yep. Hang on a second.
Oh, my devices are dying.